What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Mayrand podcast. Today, my guest is Alex Hall. This is the second time Alex joins the podcast. If you want to check out our first discussion, check out episode 20. Alex is one of the best and most well rounded skier in the world right now. While the sport has gotten hyper specialized in the last decade, with some skiers only doing competitions and others only doing film, Alex thrives in so many aspects of the sport. Since the last time we spoke, Alex won X Games Big Air, he won the Olympic slopestyle competition in China, and he also filmed for some amazing street segment like Security Notice and Training Montage. During the last season, Alex has also been filming for the upcoming Magma 3 movie and Factions Abstract movie. Alex is a true free skier at heart, and it's awesome to see him push all the aspects of our sport. In this episode, we discussed everything that happened since our last episode together 2 years ago. Winning X Games gold in 2022, going on right after to win the Olympics in China, switching it up this season with a different mindset for competitions, working on the soon to be released Magma 3 with friends Hunter S. and Owen Dahlberg, filming for Faction's upcoming movie, his recent push on social media regarding FIS's pay of free ski events compared to other sports, and big shout out to the patrons on Patreon, Will Cameron, Raf Diaz, Laurent Olivier Martin, Ryan Bruninghouse, Sam Sheff, Holden Baldassi, and Wyatt Loney. Big thanks to the sponsors for this episode, Axis Boardshop and Dick Ann's Restaurants. Let's go. Mr. Alex Hall, welcome to the podcast.
What's up? How's it going? Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Dude, I'm glad to have you back, the king of free skiing.
I don't know about that, but
Dude, the young goat, the king, the Olympic champion.
oh, you're hyping me up too much. Thank you, though.
How's it going on your end?
I'm doing good. Chilling, just taking some time off snow. Um, been like off snow for 3 or 4 weeks now, which has been nice because it was pretty crazy all season. So it feels good to relax, regroup, and just make sure I'm still all healthy and stuff. So yeah, it's been nice to chill out a little bit.
What's your health situation? Because I just did an episode with Colby, and we were talking about him specifically, like battling through a lot of injuries, and we were talking about all you guys, let's say the pro skiers on the big comp circuit, like how much of a toll physically a season is. How's it on your end? You're looking healthy as we speak.
Yeah, I'm all good. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Chilling. Definitely like here and there, I had some sore things throughout the season, but yeah, I'm feeling good right now. And I think I was pretty tired and like my body was definitely physically tired by the end of the season. But now that I've had a little time off to just relax and just get some different exercise and chill a little, I'm feeling better for sure and feeling all healthy. So knock on wood.
And what's your vibe summer wise? What are you doing? You mentioned you have been off skiing for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
What's your are you craving skiing right now? What's the lifestyle for you?
I'm definitely hyped to ski again in like a month in New Zealand, but I'm stoked to just take it easy. The season was long. I was grinding from like September to pretty much July without more than like 5 days off. So I was I was pretty down to take a break, and I've just been taking it easy. I've been playing a lot of golf. I did a little bit of surfing here and there when I could. The last couple of weeks, I was on the East Coast. I surfed a little. Visited my girlfriend in New York, and yeah, just been relaxing. It's been great. Not doing anything too crazy, so it's been pretty nice.
Dude, it seems like the whole team USA is on a big golfing vibe lately.
Yeah, we golf a lot. I kind of suck, but I like doing it. Like we all golf together. Colby's definitely the best, I think, out of all of us. But
Yeah.
yeah, we like to golf. I golfed with Connor the other day. Golf with Mac all the time. Like we're all into it, and it's like so easy in Salt Lake. There's so many public courses. Like you pay like $20 for 9 holes or whatever, so it's pretty cheap too compared to a lot of other countries.
Who's the you said Colby's the best?
Colby's, I'd say, the best of like the free ski team, the US team, but we have a couple other friends that are like really good too. So But yeah, Colby's nice with it for sure.
Where do you rank in that?
I'm pretty medium. I'm saying like about average with some of the other guys, maybe worse. I'm not very good. I haven't been golfing. I'm like the guy who's got like the shitty clubs and the shitty golf bag, and like I don't want to pay for any of the like expensive golf shit. So I just have like
Yeah.
a setup, but I'll play all right sometimes. I definitely blow up sometimes, but I'll do all right here and there. It's fun though. Played 2 rounds yesterday, so that was fun.
Do you keep scores?
Depending on my vibe, I've been like starting.
Depending on how it goes.
Yeah, no. I usually try to be honest, but yeah, everyone's got this like app we've been using where we keep track of all of our scores, and you can like see each other's scores.
Yeah.
So that I just got the app like a week ago.
Like a Strava of golfing.
Pretty much, yeah. So I've been putting my info in there, but like yesterday, I played around later in the day, just 9 holes, and I was like pretty tired, and my phone was pretty much dead because you have to have your phone to log all this stuff. So I didn't like even bother, and I was just kind of playing for. I was just kind of shooting the shit, but it was fun. I like just getting out there, and you get a little bit of exercise, get to be outside and hang with the homies. So it's pretty nice.
I was thinking about you yesterday. Not to be creepy. I was with a friend who's he free skied when he was younger. Now he's older. He doesn't do it anymore. But like he was aware of the scene, and now he's like completely out of it.
Mhm.
And he was asking me, like he knows I'm into it. He says, "Hey, where's it at? What's the things these days?" And the classic question is like, um, where are the spins at?
Yeah,
You know
what's the
what?
biggest
And then
spin?
I showed him. Well, there's Alex Hall. He did a switch 2160, and I was showing him on YouTube, and he was just like mesmerized. He was like,
That's
I think those times are funny to have the input of someone who's out of it.
yeah,
And I was just trying to show him the 2160, and he was like, I get he's spinning a lot, but I'm not understanding a thing that's happening. He had to
yeah,
watch it 10 times, and he still couldn't figure it out.
same though. When I'm doing that, I'm just spinning too. I don't really understand.
Have you? But well, for me, that was the case when I saw it live. I needed Wallish to say it for me to process it. I thought it
Yeah,
was an 18.
I mean, and I have that too. Like, even though I do the sport, like, there's a couple times I'm like, I don't even know what he did, but I think it was that. Like, and also people are so good nowadays that they make really big tricks look easier and look a lot cleaner too. So like like Mac, for example, Mac will make an 18 look like a 14, and you like don't you have to like watch it again to make sure it wasn't just a 14, but actually an 8 because they make it look so good,
Hmm. I
make it look
agree.
so easy. So
Well, for me, let's say for a switch dub, it's simple as to like if it's flippy, it's a 10. Like just going fast. If it's flippy, it's a 10. If it's spinny a bit, 14. If it's spinny a lot, 18.
yeah,
And then if it's a hall, it's a 21.
or Mac. Mac did one last year too.
Right, right. It was sick.
Yeah, his was so nice. It was crazy.
Yeah. But anyways, all that to say, since the last time we talked, you had quite a few accomplishments. Uh, Looking back, I thought it'd be a good subject to get in. Basically, 2 years ago, well, 2 years ago, a year and a half, but X Games 2022, you won with your Switch Dub 21, which was, again, I'd like to get your thoughts on that trick exactly and how you saw it, but just a big, never been done trick. So congrats on that. X Games Gold, that was sick. So
Thank
I
you.
think first thing, I want to have your thoughts on that trick and, what it means inside of free skiing or if it has any meaning. Because
Yeah,
then last year, it seemed like you came in with a I'm not gonna spin to win vibe.
yeah. Well, yeah, I was. It was funny. I was going into that big air in 2022.
Yeah.
Telling myself like I wouldn't spin to win and I'd try some other stuff. And so I did like a nice, I did a switch dub 18, which is still a lot of spins, but I did switch dub 18. I was really stoked on. And then I did like a right dub 10 pullback. And I landed them my first 2 runs and I did them like really clean. So I was really stoked. And then next thing I knew, I had like 3 runs left and I did like I was really stoked on my dub 9. I felt like that was the best trick I did that night, but it got
Hmm.
like the lowest score out of like anyone pretty much.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, I'm in last right now with 2 tricks I'm hyped on. So I guess and then everyone just started going crazy. Everyone started doing insane tricks. So I was like, I guess I'll try and join the trend, or just try and do some like bigger tricks, I guess. And then I did a forward 19 on one run. I landed clean, and then I did one more switch 18 just to feel it out. And then on my final run, I went for the switch 21, which like I wasn't even like thinking about that trick at all before like the comp.
So it hadn't crossed your mind.
No, it never crossed my mind, not once. Like genuinely, I thought maybe I'd do the forward 19 because I did that in a big air, um, like a couple months earlier in Copper in a World Cup big air. There was an Olympic qualifier. I did a dub 19, and then so I was like, oh, maybe I'll do that if I have an extra jump left. But I didn't think I'd do this switch 21, and then yeah, I just tried it and it worked.
It was a flash at the top of the jump.
Yeah, I got well, so I did the switch 18, and I was like, oh, I'd probably have airtime, and then I kind of wasn't sure if I'd do it, and then when I was at the top, I was like, oh, I might as well go for it, like it's my final jump, and then, but I never like tried it anywhere else or anything, so I just went for it, and yeah, I didn't really remember it, like, I mean, with at least for me, like, I feel like I'm not like crazy good in the air like some of the younger kids, so like when like that trick for me, I just like set it as hard as I could, and didn't like I wasn't like spotting anything, I just like was kind of praying that it would work, and it worked. I was lucky. Um, but yeah, it was funny. I had like mixed feelings.
Tell me
Like,
about it.
like after winning, I remember it was interesting. Like after winning that event that night, I went back home and I went straight to bed because I had slopestyle the next morning, and I I remember being like, it was really weird. Like I was really stoked to land that trick because like I'm always excited to push myself and learn something new. And like, I mean, it's cool that like I guess it was an NBD in competition. I think other people had done it before. Um, so it was an NBD in competition, but I so I was excited that I like pushed myself, but I was like not that excited at like I guess how it looked, and like that was the winning trick, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't a pretty trick; it was just like a technical trick.
Well, you made it look pretty. You can't. I wouldn't say it looked bad.
I appreciate that. I don't know, when I watch it, I'm like, oh, I don't know, it looks bad, but so I had like these mixed feelings, and it was really weird because I'd like just won X Games, but I was like not as stoked as I felt like I should have been,
Yeah.
just because of the tricks that I won it with were like not what I was the most proud of, I guess. Like I was still proud of them, but I was more proud of some of the other tricks I did that night.
Of like the pullback.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I was also like focused on slopestyle the next morning, so I didn't want to like celebrate too much. Like I was kind of trying to be in the zone still.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a weird kind of feeling. I remember like I wasn't bummed, but I was like, like I'm really hyped. Like I'm not gonna be ungrateful. I'm hyped. I like got an X Games gold medal, and I'm stoked I did this trick. But like I had this weird feeling in the inside. I was like, I don't know if that's like how I wanted to win this medal, you know.
Yeah.
But sometimes in competition, you got to just do whatever it takes, and I guess that's what competitions are. You try your best to beat yourself and beat your competitors, and sometimes you got to do it. I don't know if the ugly way is the right word, but you got to like find the right
Play
way.
the game.
You got to play the game, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what I did there, and it worked out.
And now it's time for a first sponsor break. Axis Boardshop has been dedicated to free skiing since its inception in 2002. At a time when some people and brands were still looking down on free skiing, Axis believed in it fully. After 20 years of supporting athletes, movies, competitions, events, and so much more, Axis is still going strong. Above all, Axis is a ski shop where you'll find everything you need for skiing, snowboarding, or skateboarding. Check them out in store in Saint-Sauveur or online at axisboutique.com. Support companies who support skiing. Support Axis Board Shop. Question for you. There is a thing in skiing where it feels like spinning to win, or, spinning a lot is bad.
Yeah,
What you just said in the last minutes about the comp makes me think about Henrik when he did his nose butt triple.
yeah,
And I don't know, there was that video of Tanner talking to
yeah,
him behind
yeah.
the scenes. And
Uh-huh.
there's that famous saying of Henrik where Henrik says, it'd be nice to win without it, though.
Yeah, yeah. I know. It's
Where
so
it's like he knows he can do it. He knows how sick it would be,
yeah,
but it's more like as if spinning more is bad. And, there's that thing of
yeah.
not wanting to go to the dark side of the
Mm.
force. Where do you think that's from?
I think I don't know. For me, honestly, like I think spinning a ton, like I always say that, like I don't want to spin to win, but because I think it's more because I feel like when I do it, I don't think I look very good
Mm,
doing the spin to win. Like I just can't make it look as good as some other people. But like when I watch, for example, Mac do it or some of these other people, like Mac says the same thing, but I'm like, dude, you don't need to say the same thing because when you do a 19, it looks as good as any trick that anyone else will do that's a 1260 or a 1620. But I feel like when I did the trick like the 21 or like the 19, like I just don't think it looks very good, or maybe that's just not my style of skiing that I'm proud of. But I
mhm,
think for some people, like they can make it look really good and spin crazy amounts. So I think for me, it's like I don't want to spin to win too much because I won't make it look good. But some people make it look really good, and there's no reason they shouldn't, you know?
yeah,
I think sometimes it's more just like for the spectators because it's so complicated to understand what's going on that if you can do a little less rotation, even though it's still technically hard, if you can do less rotation, it can maybe be a little more manageable for like an audience to understand. So that's
yeah,
kind of what I think about sometimes too, is like being how would the spectator feel if you're watching this? And like for me personally, when I watch aerials, I don't really know aerials very well, so I can't really pick the tricks apart. They all look kind of similar to me. Like if I really take my time to focus, like I can be like, okay, that was that, that, and that. But if I'm just watching it, like all the tricks look pretty similar.
mhm,
And so I think if I was a regular spectator watching free ski big air when we're all doing these crazy spins, I'm assuming it would maybe have a similar vibe to where they all start looking pretty similar.
yeah,
If you can break that mold, I think that's really cool. But obviously, it's really hard to do and still have a technical trick.
yeah. No, I feel you. And I had the thing again going back to my friend I was showing your video to. I was explaining to him the kind of locking your rotation. I don't know how you guys call it, but like what Teal does, going switch
Yeah.
cork 7 to switch 3 at the end.
Mhm.
And he was having a hard time understanding what was happening. And I was telling him like he's stopping his rotation. It's really hard. And he wasn't really,
Yeah.
catching it. Whereas when I showed him your pullback, he saw it and he understood it first. And he was like, "Oh
Yeah.
shit, he spun the other way."
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Like that's how I don't know. When I think about it, I think of like the normal spin, and then there's like what Teal and some other people do, which is like the hold. I call it the hold kind of, or the lock.
Okay. Yeah.
You do a lot more rotation at the start, and then you kind of stay even with your rotation through the later flips of your
Yeah.
trick, which is crazy hard. I can like do the simple versions of those tricks, but I don't really do them a lot. And then the third thing is kind of what I call like more of a pullback, where you're actually past your rotation and then you have to spin back the other way.
Yeah.
Um, and so those are like the three ways I look at it. And I think a lot of people kind of maybe look at it that way as well. Like there's the hold and the pullback and then the regular spin.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's hard to like distinguish between them because sometimes they blend together in certain ways, you know. So
So how do you call yours?
I call mine a pullback. Yeah,
So a ride dub
right
9
dub
pullback?
10, or right.
Ride dub.
I'll either say right dub 9 pullback, or I'll say like right dub 10 pullback 9,
Yeah.
like depending on how I don't know. Or
Yeah.
I say like right dub 10 pretz 1. Sometimes I'll say
Yeah.
that.
I think that would be fitting kind of
Yeah,
because your whole trick is as if you were doing a dub 10 and then it's last second that, oh, there's a pretzel.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's definitely there's some like variations in there, but they're hard to pick apart for sure. And I think like for the judges too, it's probably so hard to try and determine what's what. And then yeah, it'd be so hard to be a judge nowadays.
Dude, again, not to go back on myself, but I did some judging this year and for smaller events, and
Yeah.
man, it's so hard.
Oh yeah.
It's not an easy job.
It's so hard, and like I feel like judges get so much shit from people, but it's so hard to it's so hard to judge, like I guess whatever you want to call fair, because everyone's gonna have a different opinion. That's what free skiing is. So
Well, it's the whole thing that there are criterias. Because if you're not judging on criterias, what are you judging on? It's like you need some. And
yeah,
like I love what you did in your slope run with the knuckle bounce. But then the hard thing is how do you assess that inside the criterias? Inside the
yeah, exactly.
criterias, there's amplitude.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
exactly.
are you supposed to get a 0 because
Yeah,
you hit the knuckle?
mhm,
But that was on purpose. Like
yeah,
there's free skiing is so creative that it's hard to manage both having criterias and not get stuck in that.
Yeah, exactly. I know, I agree, and I think the criteria, and I think it's also tough because the criteria, like what I like really, I feel like realized this year was that there's all these different criteria pieces like amplitude and execution and variety, and I forget what the other ones are, but
Difficulty and progression.
difficulty. But I think it's easy to get stuck, at least as athletes,
Yeah.
thinking that a specific thing means a very specific other thing. So, for example, thinking the variety means spinning both ways. I think it shows variety, but that doesn't only mean variety. There's a lot of like free skiing, there's so many different tricks to
Hmm.
pick from. You don't only have to show your variety through spinning both ways. In my opinion, that doesn't honestly show a ton of variety. Yes, I know it's pretty much like required. It's like unspoken rule. You got to
Well,
spin both ways because it's harder to do
it's
things both.
harder. So then it links. They're all like intertwined because then
Exactly.
it also links back to difficulty because it is a harder.
Yeah, but like for the big thing I was like talking about this year was at least for rail tricks, when people think about variety, they always think, all right, I got to do a right two on here, and then I got to do a left two on here to have
Hmm.
a variety. But like, who's to say that's less variety than if I do two really weird creative tricks that are maybe both natural? I think that's more variety than just doing a right two and a left two.
Hmm. And I agree. I agree with you. Well, I think both both are variety. That's the thing.
Exactly,
It can
both
be
are variety, but
grabs,
yeah,
spin directions, axis, use of the course.
yeah, exactly.
And and there's more.
And ideally you're just good enough to where you can do the really creative weird tricks and get variety that way, but then you're also doing them both ways,
Yeah.
like someone like Ferdy or someone like that who's really good at doing really creative tricks both ways. He's showing a ton of variety in different axes and like in his flips and stuff. That's like the most variety you can get. But I mean, it's hard to pinpoint what a score should be on certain things because
Hmm.
it's such an interesting sport. But that's just part of competitive skiing, and that's why
Hmm.
I don't know. I try not to take like I don't I try not to get offended by what the judges do because I know they're just trying to do their best. And if they don't like your run one day, it doesn't necessarily mean they won't like it a different day. Or
And now it's time for another sponsor break. Dickens is a family owned fast food restaurant chain with 12 locations in the Montreal region. Close to 70 years after opening their first restaurant on Montreal's Boulevard Pineuf, Dickens is still focused on what matters, the same great menu with great food made with quality ingredients. I've said it, I'm a Dickens super fan, and many people ask me what's my go to. I have to say it's their famous Wally burger, a double cheeseburger with slices of pepperoni. It's so good. Dickens is now selling their sauce in their restaurants and in many Metro grocery stores throughout Quebec. Plus, they've put a bunch of great recipes to go along with it on their website at dickenssauce.com. Also, big news, their Saint Jérôme location is reopened. Same location, brand new building. Go check them out when you pass by Saint Jérôme. Support companies who support skiing, support Dickens restaurants. It's the most mentally demanding thing I've done since like college exams. Where you
yeah,
go in for 4 hours and your head is boiling.
uh-huh.
Like I had days when I was like laying on the carpet, like wanting some Advils because I was like,
Yeah,
my head couldn't like there was, and then I did like kids comp, which is like you have to judge 200 runs that are all
yeah,
looking kind of the same. So, dude,
yeah,
you get,
that's crazy. And you have to
um,
like write it all down. They steno it.
yeah, it's
It's
dude,
tough.
the steno and every run. What you learn is what I learned is the scores don't mean a thing. The scores are a
Yeah,
tool.
exactly.
I hope Jason Aaron's going to be proud of hearing this. The scores are a tool to rank you in order. So
Yeah,
every time you're not thinking of a score, you're just thinking, where does this run fit compared to another run? And then you have to like go back to your notes and look through it. It's really intense.
yeah, yeah.
But anyways, going back to what we said, I think what's cool, um, aside from the criterias, is for most comps, I think it's with the overall impression
Mhm.
um, format, let's say. So where yes, you have to look at those criterias, but it's all under the umbrella of overall impression.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you can go back, you can like a bit steer away of that rigidity and go back to more the free skiing thought of okay, what was the overall impression?
Yeah, exactly.
Did a halls bring back made me go or
Yeah,
not? You know?
and it's tough because we have like the overall impression is really nice. Like I'd say most of us like the overall impression more, but sometimes they do the scoring that's like section by section,
Yeah.
and that kind of takes away from it a little bit. So we've been having this debate like with the people at FIS and with all the other athletes, like which one we want. And some, there's benefits to both in some ways, but I agree that overall is kind of more the essence of free skiing, but you're a little more kind of at the mercy of the judges, just feelings, which I guess you want to try and stay away from like personal feelings when you're judging a competition
Hmm.
because they can affect scores so much. So it's hard to know exactly how to do that. But yeah, I mean, we've been this year, we were like trying as much as we could to have comps be overall impression instead of
Yeah.
like section by section scoring.
Yeah. Because the basically the difference, again, I hope I'm not mistaken, but with overall impression, every judge is looking at the whole course. Whereas when it's section by section, you have judges assigned to each section. So if you're a judge for the top section, you don't look at you can even not look at the bottom because you're not scoring on that.
Yeah,
It's all
exactly.
separate, and then it there are more points in overall impression. There's really a thing about scores are meaningless. It's more a rank order, whereas for section by section, each section has kind of a score. And
Yeah,
then to
exactly.
me as a free skier, I don't really like that because it
Yeah,
makes me think almost of like diving, where it's like, oh, well, that flip it means 8 points, and that
yeah.
flip means, and that's not free skiing to me.
And also slope styles about your whole run, not just the individual parts of
Exactly,
the run
exactly.
and how you link them together. And I think there are still overall judges with the section by section. There's just fewer of them. There's like two or three, or I forget how many. So it's less weight in the score. And the interesting thing with section by section is that it isn't a ranking. So everyone enters their scores, and then at the end, the way I understand it is everyone enters their scores for the section, and then at the end, it pretty much just spits out a number, and then it's like, all right,
Yeah.
that's like they don't really know exactly, or at least the guys who are judging the individual sections, they don't know where the rest of the run's going to end up. So
Hmm.
it's a little more random in that sense. But I think the thought with a section by section is, first of all, to give more accountability, I guess, to have the judges be more accountable for their decisions. So then if someone's pissed after the comp, they can be like, okay, well, this section, we didn't like your trick here. It didn't feel very hard.
Hmm.
It kind of saves the judges in a way. And the section by section is also, I think, for the viewer, it's a little more interesting because if someone doesn't know anything about free skiing, they at least can see these stats of the run, like, oh, we did this good in that section, but bad in that section. And it helps make sense of it in terms of a more simple form, like for a regular viewer. But we were saying you can still incorporate stats like that to some extent in the overall impression and like just add them, even if they're not super accurate, like you can still add certain stats in there and it'll keep it interesting for the regular viewer instead of having to do the section by section. It takes up way more time. So there's a lot of lag time between runs and all that stuff. So I think it's less interesting for the viewer.
But I think, and that's a great point. I think a big thing to help the viewer is someone like Wallish. Aside from stats,
Yeah.
just I heard him make a lot of good comments in the past years, being like, um, really a good link between the core audience and the general audience, being like, hey, Alex was doing a Tokyo drift nose under two on, and kind of helping people understand that it's hard and telling how it's hard because the general audience didn't even notice what you did there, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And Walsh it's great when you have someone who is as knowledgeable as Wallish to try and explain something that's really complicated in more simple terms for the average viewer. So he's done a great job in the past years at trying to make it more comprehensible and also not he very rarely missed calls, which I think is really nice because there used to be free ski announcers that like they had no clue what was going on. They'd call the wrong trick all the time. So it's really nice with Wallish that he knows all the tricks. Like he rarely messes up, and I think that's pretty awesome because I know how easy it is to mess up. Like again, I don't even know sometimes what people are doing, so it's pretty hard to keep track of
Mm,
what's happening.
yeah, it's easy to slip up.
Yeah, I've done it before. Like when I'm explaining something to a friend or I'm saying something, like I'll mess the trick call up too. Like
Yeah.
everyone does it, and it's pretty impressive how few times Walsh messes up, honestly.
So good judging talk. Um, Going back to X Games Big Air, we talked about your 2160, what that meant, all that. What was your vibe this year going into it that led you to do what was an unsuccessful attempt? Because if I remember correctly, you never got what you wanted right, but you were going for like a really different path than what you did last year, which was trying a knuckle bounce trick.
Yeah. No, yeah, I ended up getting one that was decent, but not, like, as smooth as I wanted it, and it was really tough because it was actually the wind was picking up that night. So every run I'd go down and take less and less speed, but because there was more of a tailwind every run, like I kept going too big. But I
Mm,
finally got one decent. I didn't like love how it looked, but I was still like hyped to just try it. But yeah, so coming in this year, I think I just wanted to take a step back from the crazy spins and just more do it for myself, like do what I wanted to do and try and have fun with it and be a little more creative. I was also pretty tired. We've been traveling a lot before that, so I was just kind of like, I'm just gonna have fun with big air and like hopefully try and focus on slopestyle a little more. And so my first jump actually for big air in 2023 was a cork one, and I wanted to do that because my last jump the year before was a 21, like the biggest trick I've ever done. And then I wanted to follow it up with the next jump I did at X Games Bigger with a cork one. So that was my first trick of the night. And I was stoked to do that. It's just a fun one. And I don't know, I've always wanted to do that in like a real big air comp. So it felt good to like finally do that. And then I went for a knuckle bounce pretty much the rest of the comp. And I got one that was decent, but I think it scored like pretty good. I was pretty surprised. I think they just gave me a decent score because everyone else's scores were already like way higher. So they're like, oh, we might as well give it an okay score. But no, it was fun to like take a little bit of the edge off, and I still like was trying my best and taking it serious. I would say,
mhm,
but just like taking allowing myself to have the freedom to try something else. Where in the last couple years, especially last year, like before the Olympics and all this stuff, I felt a lot more locked up in terms of what I wanted to do and what I thought I should do. So it felt nice to kind of explore a new direction and try a little more creative aspect with a little less spinning, but what to me still felt really technical, like the technicality of having the perfect speed to land on the knuckle and then do the bounce and spin again. Like in my opinion, for me personally, what I was trying last year in the big air comp was definitely harder than like for at least a switch 18 or like an 1800 for me, because when I do a big spin, I know I can just go big on the jump and have a lot of air time. And even if I go medium size or if I go really big, like I'll be able to slow it down in the air or adjust and
mhm,
still comp it. But when you're aiming for a 3 foot spot on the knuckle, it all depends on your speed management coming in. And so it's really tough to get the right speed, the right rotation, bounce, spin again. So I think it was still a really technical trick, but it just involved a lot less spinning. So just trying to do stuff like that, I think I kind of carried that theme throughout the year, and I was doing a lot of kind of different and more interesting stuff for myself, like in slopestyle comps as well, which is really fun, and just exploring a little more and taking a little bit of liberty to try some new things.
did you think it could pay off, or were you coming in kind of rationally knowing like it's probably not going to get me a medal, but I want to do it just
Yeah, it
for the
was
sake of it?
yeah, it was kind of that vibe, like I don't know how it's gonna score, but probably it won't score as well as the crazy 19s and 21s, just because I mean, I think those are crazy hard tricks, and I think it was totally fair. Also, just knowing how free ski judging is with this big spins getting rewarded. So coming in, I knew it probably wouldn't do crazy well, but I really just wanted to do it for myself.
Mhm,
And then there's always there's always the chance that they really love it or that you
yeah,
make it look really good and it scores really well. So um,
big respect on that, dude.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It was fun too. Like I just had done so many comps in the like last, especially in 2022, that I was just like doing the exact same thing, just like a switch 18 and a dub 19 or like a dub
Yeah,
16, like same grab, same spin, or maybe add a spin. But it felt good just to switch it up. Like kind of make it more fun. You know, it was getting a little stale for me personally.
Mm.
So it felt good to try some new things, which was pretty
And
nice.
you had the year before you had 3X Games medal and the Olympic gold, so
Yeah, so it was.
you had some leeway.
Yeah, I think a little bit of leeway, but I'm still always gonna try like my personal best in
Hmm.
competitions. Like even this year, like I think I competed a little less. I definitely competed less than usual, but I was still trying. Like even if I'm trying a different route or a different way of approaching how I can do my best possible run, like I was still trying my best.
Yeah,
Even
yeah,
if maybe to some people it looked like I was just chilling or whatever. Like I wouldn't say I was chilling at all. Like I was still trying my hardest skiing. It's just I was approaching it in a very different way. And yeah, I don't know. It made it really fun this year.
yeah.
So I was excited to try some new
No,
things.
and to be clear, to me, it wasn't looking like you were chilling. I knew it was super hard for you to get it for what you mentioned, the speed, the pop. If you need to land perfectly where you want to get it, but to me, it was really a testament of like you have the tricks that you would be strategically you would know it would be safe to go for a podium, but you're choosing to go with something more risky. To me, that was like big respect, as I said.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was stoked. I appreciate that. But yeah, hopefully think of some new stuff for next year. Maybe we'll see.
I was rewatching Colby and everyone killing it at Kimbo, and I was rewatching your run at the Olympics with the little Kimbo knuckle.
Yeah.
I feel like they should have that as a knuckle huck at X Games.
Yeah, I know. We've been talking about how like a bigger knuckle would be like really cool. I mean the regular knuckle is sweet because I think the normal knuckle makes you do more butters and like creative stuff because you're not catching as much air. Like the Kimbo roller might just turn into like a big air comp kind of because you have so much air time. But we keep saying like just a nice roller would like more of an up down like a Kimbo style roller would be like so sick to have knuckle hook on. Just I mean people would go crazy. So we'll see if they ever do something like kind of build an extended knuckle, but yeah, knuckle hook's fun. It's just like a nice one to like. It's weird because you're doing an X Games comp, but you're like not that stressed. You're like actually having a good time. I mean, I'm always having a good time at X Games, but like the nerves, it takes the edges, and you're not as stressed out for that one. You're kind of just like, oh, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll think of this. Like I don't really go into knuckle huck with too much of a game plan. I kind of just do one run at a time and see what I'm feeling like, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, like going back to when you're a kid and just daydreaming about what could be possible.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. Like, and it's like 2 years or like a year and a half ago for 2022, I got bronze at knuckle huck, and I was really busy that week doing slopestyle and big air. So I actually hadn't hit the knuckle all week. I didn't hit the knuckle until I got like two practice runs right before the event, and I just did like a little nose butter five and like some and like a hand drag three, but it was fun coming into that event without a game plan. And like some of the attempts, like I'd be dropping in and like I would like barely know what I was doing when I was dropping in, or like because Mac was at the top of the start gate with me. He was like my coach or whatever for knuckle huck. And so I'd be like pretty much dropping in, and he'd be like, "Yo, try this," and then I was try. So it was nice to like just not improvise completely, but like it was a little closer to like improvisation than like very planned out big air and slopestyle tricks, which is
That's
nice.
dope.
Yeah, it's super fun.
That I think those two big airs link nicely into your Olympic gold run because there's two things that relate to this that I think are super cool. Is you were going into a super risky run, in my opinion, for your Olympics.
Yeah.
Like a lot of tricks, like the pullback is. I don't know how many times you get it out of 100, but I'm like it looks like
Yeah.
it's
I wish I was better at it.
yeah. And then a lot of things that you're not sure how the judges are going to respond.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
your run, you had like, let's go play by play. Switch two on, back swap two out on
Yeah.
a super long rainbow to down rail, which is
Yeah, that was risky.
super risky in terms of it's difficult.
Yeah.
Then, um, what was it?
A
Switch.
switch right to back to on this kind of transfer to down rail.
Yeah.
And that rail was actually even longer than the rainbow rail. That was the longest like
Really?
rail. Yeah, it was really long. That was the trick I like That was maybe not. That was the rail trick I was the most worried for. Was that trick? Also, the way it's set up, it was real blind, so you couldn't see the rail after. So you kind of just had to aim it off the jump and hope you were aiming the right way. You had like no time to set up between the rails. It was really quick and icy. So that was the one I was the most worried for. But yeah, that was both those rails were like probably the two longest rails I've hit ever in a competition, and they were back to back. So it
Because
was pretty scary.
sometimes people don't notice it, but I feel like a lot of times in your comps, you're kind of some people are going to disaster tricks because it's
Yeah,
safe. You
exactly.
kind of do a kiss the rail at the end of the day. You four on, back four, and at the end of the day, it's just a ding, and you're
Yeah,
done. You know.
the less metal you can slide, the more consistent it's going to be. Pretty
hmm
much, like that's how
Yeah.
it is because you're not going to come off early off the rail.
So like your first one that's switch two on, back swap, two out, super hard trick, but then you're sliding what 50 feet,
Yeah,
whatever
really
the length.
long.
It's a
Yeah,
long rail.
it's a
Yeah,
really long rail.
and then when I talk about some stuff that you're not sure how the judges are going to react, there's rails options. The third one, there's a flat rail. You can do many things, and you go for a 7 over it, no tap to tail tap,
Yeah,
which is hard. It's creative. It's sick, but like, how are the judges going to react? You don't know.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of risky things in that run. With that one specifically, that trick, I randomly tried it like at the end of one of the practice days just for fun,
hmm
and it just like worked really nice and it felt really good. Like that was the best feeling trick in my run for sure was that third rail. Like I had the most fun doing that trick.
Yeah.
Um, and I usually wouldn't do a trick like that because I'm usually like I gotta try and slide a lot of like long rails because I think it's the hardest option. So that's what I want to do. So I'm usually like not trying to avoid touching rails because I feel like that's a kind of the easy way out, like you were saying.
Yeah.
But with that one, the trick felt so good and it felt right in that moment because I literally had slid the two longest rails in the whole course like right before that. So I felt like if I'm gonna slide the two longest rails back to back, I'm allowed to, like do a more fun creative trick over a rail, kind of. So that was like my excuse. Or I guess that's what I told myself. I was like, it's okay to do this because I just slid these really long rails.
Well, the
Plus,
judges agreed.
yeah, no, and it scored like I think they scored it like super high actually. I think so. It was I think they liked the creative aspect of it.
Yeah. And then you go into a left up 16 lead Japan.
Yep.
Super sick. And again, big respect on going back to my point, trying stuff that you don't know how it's going to judge. The option after that was a Kimball roller or two jumps.
Yeah.
So you could have gone with your switched up 14 or switched up 16 or 18 that you're comfortable with, but you went with the what was it, switch 7 to switch 5
Yeah.
onto the knuckle, which again is like gambling a bit in terms of how it's going to be rewarded.
Yeah, that one was tough cuz that was a huge decision I had to make in my run because it was either I hit the jumps or I hit the roller and for some reason honestly I didn't really like the jumps from the side. They felt really weird like you would jump and you'd almost kind of touch the knuckle and then you'd keep flying and like almost overshoot it. So that kind of helped me make the decision that I didn't really like the jumps in the first place. I was like, well, I'm going to try the roller and see how it feels. And I remember it was pretty funny because so we have two coaches on the US team. I mean, coaches, they're just like they help us at the top.
You have
And
two
they like,
homies.
yeah, two homies. They help us make, they help like they give their 2 cents on what they think is like maybe a better option, but they don't really at least for me, how they approach me, like they know I don't want to be talking about my options too much. Like I want to figure it out myself in some ways. So,
hmm
but for that one, like I started doing the roller, and then after one of the practice days, like it took me like all day to figure it out with speed, and like I finally got it dialed by the end of the practice day, and I remember like it was the first time that I'd heard like the coaches be like, that might be like too risky
Mm.
of a trick to do. Like you might want to think about something else. But also that was one of them. The other one like supported a lot, and he was like, if you think it's sick, like you should for sure do it. But they also were like, because we had a quali and a final, so I did this trick in qualies as well, and they were like, so if you land your first run in qualies and that trick scores really bad, you should have a backup run. So I
hmm
actually had a backup run that I could have done, um, if, in case that trick did really bad, and it ended up scoring really well, so it worked out. But it was funny that to hear like the skepticism from the coaches in some regard. Like they're always going to support me with whatever I want to do, but there was like a little bit of like, "Do you sure you want to do it? Like, I think it's really sick, but I'm worried the judges might not like it." And then I was talking to like a lot of the homies too, like Mac and Colby and some of the other guys, and they were like, "I mean, it's sick, but yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, you have no idea if you're going to get screwed by the judges or not. Like I think it's like they'd say like I think it's dope, but I think it's really risky. Like that's what they would tell me. And I was like, yeah, it's true. But then I one of the last practice days, maybe it was the last practice day, I pretty much just like committed. I was like, they're either gonna hate it or they're gonna love it. And I had like this backup run, but it wasn't that good. I mean, it was a good backup run. Like it probably could have made finals, but it wasn't like a podium run, I don't think. So I was pretty much just banking on it. And yeah, I ended up working out, and it was really fun. It was really scary, that trick, but it was really fun too. So I was stoked.
Dude. And then last trick, the ride dub 10, pretzel 1, ride dub 9, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And you put up the end saying like, yeah, I just fucking did it.
Yeah, I was so worried. Like I like knew planning this run out. I was like, it's all gonna come down to this last trick, and like I'm either gonna not get the pretzel into a right up 10 and get a like pretty bad score, or I'm gonna get the pretz one and it's gonna do really well. And I didn't know how that trick would score actually, because like that trick I didn't do in the qualies. I did a different kind of run like on the jumps in the qualies. I still had the roller trick, but the other tricks were different. So I had no clue how the bring back would score, and it ended up scoring really well. But I remember that last jump was weird because China, where we had the Olympics, it was super windy. So the wind was playing a huge factor in your speed. Like sometimes you'd overshoot it, sometimes you'd knuckle it. And I remember landing my roller trick, and everything in the run had been perfect. And I was just coming in that last jump like, oh my God, like the main thing I was thinking about was my speed, because with the Pretz tricks, you need the perfect speed, because if you go a little too big, you try to do the pretzel too early and then you still go 1080. And if you go too small, you don't have enough time to do the pretzel because you need a little bit of extra air time. So you still do it right dub 10. So I just remember thinking that I needed the perfect speed to do the trick. So I was like really focused on the turns I was doing. And also on the in run, the jump, I was telling myself like, don't fuck this, don't fuck this. It's like, and then yeah, I ended up working out, which was sick. And I was like so hyped to do that run. And it was weird because it was the first of 3 runs. So then I had this crazy adrenaline rush. Um, and it was really hard to focus again after that, because I pretty much did the run I wanted to. I ended up like trying to do one rail trick that was harder. But I like pretty much did everything I wanted to. So I was like, I was trying to refocus, and I was like, all right, I got 2 more runs. Like, let's try and do this better. Like everyone else is going to have 2 more runs. They're going to try and do it better. But it was like so hard to like stay mentally focused. But I ended up doing a second run that I was really stoked on too. There was a couple, it was actually a harder run. There was a harder rail trick, but it was a little less clean. Just throughout the run, there's a couple more bobbles. But that run actually ended up scoring really well as well. So I think those were the 2 highest scores of the day, were my first and second run. And then the third run, like all my adrenaline was gone, and I like totally, I think I messed up the first rail. No, I messed up the second rail like right away. I was like drained by the third.
Yeah. Dude, you said 2 super interesting things. First off, talking to yourself.
Yeah.
How much do you talk to yourself during a run, like versus like emptying your thoughts and just being in the moment?
It's weird. I'm just in the moment, but on very specific things, pretty much just the pullback. If it's like on the last jump, or like it's usually like or the only time I'll really talk to myself is if the whole run is perfect and I'm coming into the last jump and all I need to do is land the last jump. I'm always just like, come on, like don't fuck do this. But usually like with all the rails or a lot of the jumps, like I'm just flowing, like I'm not really thinking about much. Like I'm definitely thinking about my speed. Like I always try and make sure I have the right speed. But very rarely am I like really hyper focused on one thing. But it's pretty much just like if I land everything perfect and I'm on the last jump or like the last feature, or if I have to do a pullback and I'm like, I have to like force myself to do it. Cause a lot of the time, like in practice, I'll barely do one, or I'll do like 1 or 2 because they're so scary to do. Like I need to get better at convincing myself to do them more. I don't do them a lot because they're like scary to like hook an edge.
Mm.
So then in the comps, I'm always like really trying to tell myself, all right, like this is the comp, like you really have to commit to the pullback. Um, and so like for example, yeah, X Games, I had one run last year that was really good, but I messed up the first rail and I got the last jump. But then one of my later runs, the whole run was perfect. And I was coming to the last jump and I did a right dub 10 and I tried to do the pullback, but I couldn't. So I still went 10. And I mean, it ruined my whole score. Like I got a bad score, but I think if I would have gotten the 9, it had a lot of potential to be a really good run. Um, so just like stuff like that, like I really got to try and force myself to do the bring backs because they're kind of scary.
What was your inner discussion regarding that? I think it was your second run at this year's X Games where you start off your run and you mess up the first rail. You got your 2 on prets, 2 nose under, but you kind of scrape the landing a bit.
Yeah,
Like
I
you
like
at
hit my
that point, you know your run is pretty much done,
yeah.
but you keep going. What's the inner monologue there?
Um, I'm usually pissed for like 1 second and then I refocus.
Right.
But I learned the hard way. I specifically remember this event, like I was like 17 or something. It was one of the first like World Cups I ever did. And it was qualification. I ended up messing up the first rail. And I was just like mad at myself. So then the rest of the run, all I did was like straight slides and cork threes. But I had another run. I had my second quali run after that to try and get a good run. But because all I'd done was straight airs on the rest of that run, I felt less warmed up. And then I didn't land the second run either. So now every time I mess up a run, even anywhere in the run, I still do my whole run or try my best to do the whole run unless it's like the last run and it won't matter because it's another practice run that you get.
Hmm.
So instead of giving up and not getting the extra practice, when you mess something up early, I always tell myself, all right, you're still going to do the whole run because it means you'll be more dialed for the next run. You'll know what it feels like. So at X Games, when I messed that first reel up, I was like, fuck, how did I mess that up? Because that was my most consistent trick. I never messed it up one time. And then I randomly messed it up in the comp. I like hit my tail coming up. So I was like mad for like 1 second. I was like, oh, how did you just do that? And then I refocused and I did like the rest of my run. And the rest of the run was great. And then it was maybe my next run, I think, that was almost that really good run where I then messed up the last trick. Um, but yeah, I usually try and refocus and like still treat it like a normal run, like a normal comp run where I'm going to do all my tricks.
And then the other thing that was super interesting in what you said about your slope run was landing your run early in the comp.
Yeah,
That made me think sometimes that happens in the street when you come in for a battle, you're ready to be there for the whole day, but then you get the trick you wanted inside 30 minutes, and then you're like, do we leave or
yeah, yeah,
do I keep going? Should I just was I not going for a hard trick? And like, should I go for a harder trick or should I leave?
yeah. No, I've definitely had that before where you get a trick too quick and you're like, damn, like, should I try something harder? Should we stay here? Usually for me, it depends on like if the feature is really scary or I feel like it's really dangerous. Like if it feels really dangerous, I'll usually be like, oh, I'm stoked on that. But if it's like fun or like not the craziest rail or something, then I'll like go back and try and get a better trick. But yeah, that was nerve wracking in the Olympics, just like landing the first run and then just like it was nice because I had two other tries to like improve my score, but I knew like, damn, I landed my first run. Like everyone else has like two or three more tries to try and beat this run. And also, usually with judging, when you land an early run, it doesn't score as well as later just because of the hype. Like I think it's a subconscious thing. So I was a little worried of that, but I kind of knew in the morning, like, so we had like 5 practice runs that morning before the comp, like before the slope comp started at the Olympics. And I was piecing together my run and I ended up like my last training run. I didn't do my full run, like I did different parts of it, but it was like I got all the different parts and I was like, okay, like it's the only comp I've ever had where I kind of had this feeling that if I landed this run perfect, it would be really hard to beat. And it ended up being really windy and it was tough conditions. So not a lot of the other guys landed like their perfect runs as well. Like there were some really good runs, but I think there was some really good guys like Colby who didn't quite land his perfect run. So like that obviously played into it. But I remember, yeah, it being the only comp where I was coming into the comp knowing that if I did this run, it would be really hard to beat. And I think after landing my run and and seeing the scores, because for the Olympic slopestyle it was section by section. So you get to see all of your scores on each section, and they're scored for the Olympics. It was out of 10. Each section was out of 10, I believe, or maybe 12. I forget. But I remember seeing all my section scores, and they were like crazy high. It was out of 10, and they were really high section scores on every single thing. I think my lowest section score, I think, was my dub 16. Um, and I remember just being like, with the scores being this high on each section, it's going to be really tough. Just because I knew what the other guys were doing, I knew that they would have sections, at least in the rails or somewhere, that wouldn't score as well. And like the knuckle trick and the last trick were some of the highest scoring tricks on the sections. So I knew that like having those back to back was going to be really tough to beat as well. Um,
And that format, section by section, is kind of, it's almost a strategic game for the athletes, where if you see your dub 16 is your worst score, let's say,
yeah,
then you're like, okay, well, I'll do the same run and do a dub 19 instead, or
yeah.
like, because you can really assess where it is. And
Mm. And that's the thing for me personally. That's actually one of the reasons that I like the section by section less, because it tends to lead people to do things for the score.
yeah,
So you do something and you see, oh, that didn't score well, I'm going to try and do something better, or that did well, I'm going to do that. Or maybe someone else sees that you're doing a trick that does well and they want to copy it. And so when you have that, you tend to not do exactly what you want. Whereas when it's overall impression, you're just going to do what the run you want to do, or the run that you think is going to do best. You're not going to like play the game, which I think is like kind of, I guess, more beautiful in terms of like the aspect of free skiing.
well, the spirit of free skiing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like one of my big things why I kind of like the section by section less, is that the strategic game is really interesting because it's a competitive environment, and like that's part of it. But for me personally, I want to go out and try and do hopefully what I really want to do most, and not so much because it might score like that much higher. I mean, obviously I'm still trying to do my best tricks that I think are going to score well, but with adding my own flavor. So yeah, trying to play the strategic game is like a weird kind of feeling for me, like in terms of how much I want to do it and how much I want to stick to what I really want to do. So it was definitely nice. It worked out for me because I ended up doing what I wanted to do and it scored well, so I didn't have to change anything. So I was lucky. But for some of the other people, I could tell that they were trying to make last second adjustments to their runs, and it kind of messed them up in some ways because they weren't prepared for those tricks. So I ended up being lucky in that one.
I remember for Sochi, winning the Olympics can be a really big push for you to get known by the general audience.
Hmm.
I remember the three, how do you say that? Not the three-peat, but the
The three medalists,
the three medalists for
yeah,
slope.
the podium
Uh,
sweep.
yeah, podium sweep.
Yeah,
Thank you. That was
Gus, Josh.
Gus, Joss, and Nick Gepper. Thank you.
Yeah,
I was lagging. And then they went, on late night shows, and
yeah,
it was
yeah.
all a big thing.
Well,
How was that for you?
so I actually didn't. I think it was a little less crazy for me. I think there's a couple reasons. One of them was because of COVID, so everything was a little more locked down. And then another being that it was all the way over in China, so the time difference was so crazy. And then we had a set date that we had to travel home on with our specific flight, so there was a lot more kind of locked in terms of what we were doing. But yeah, I mean, the like 24 hours following up, like just those 24 hours of like the comp into like the media stuff was definitely crazy, because I did the event was done by like 11, or it was done early because it started really early, and then I went straight to drug testing, and then from because they pull you aside right away, so I went straight to drug testing for like an hour, and then from there I did a media, like a press conference right at the venue right after that for a couple hours. Then from there, I went straight by bus to like the media event place where all the like media tents were and like all the different broadcasting people. And I did media like all day, for like a crazy long time. Then the medal ceremony was there as well. So I went from media. I didn't go. I actually didn't go home that whole day because I had all this back to back stuff, and someone who was like helping the U.S. team actually had to like grab these other clothes that you have to wear for like the media and the podium stuff. So she grabbed the clothes for me. I never went home. straight to media, like all evening. Then the medal ceremony was at like 8 or 9 or something. So in media, and then I did the medal ceremony, and then I did more media, and then I didn't get back till like 2 a.m. that day. And my day started, I think we got up at 6 a.m. for the comp. So it was like 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. like straight, like not chilling for a single moment pretty much,
Yeah.
which was psycho. And then we actually had to leave. So they wanted us to leave as soon as possible right after our event. And since we did big air first, we had to leave right after slopestyle. So I got back at 2 a.m. and then had to get up like at 6 or 7 a.m. the next day to take the bus to the airport to then fly home. So it was like the most hectic 48 hours like ever. I was so like by the time I landed back in the US, I was so bodied. Like I just slept for like a whole day straight. It was crazy how exhausted I was.
And did you get some partying in between those media time and the departure?
No, no. So everyone, it was pretty tough with COVID. Like there wasn't a lot going on.
Yeah.
There was, like, one place that everyone like got together and kind of hung out. Like I think just all like the free ski homies and stuff, and they all kind of partied. But it was like from 11 to like 2 or 3 a.m. So they were all partying while I was like doing the all the rest of the media stuff. So I didn't get to party. And then yeah, straight to the airports or on the plane. So I never celebrated really. I mean, I never did a big party, but like I celebrated with my close homies and like my family when I got back, which is like that's more my style of celebration. I'm like a huge party guy. So just hanging with the homies and the fam is like perfect. That's all I kind of need, honestly.
And last thing regarding the Olympics that you mentioned, how was the media tour? Like you mentioned you did the whole day. Like
Yeah.
how bad were the questions? Was there any talk about free skiing or it was more some
It
not
was
cringe talk, but like how was it?
it was fun. Definitely some pretty cringy, like painful stuff, like weird, like. But it was fun because so it was cool because I got the gold medal and Nick Gepper got the silver medal. So we actually did a lot of the media stuff together, which was
Mm.
really fun. So I think that helped a lot, just having Nick there and doing that stuff together. But yeah, definitely some cringy questions, some random stuff. But overall, it was super fun. Like got to do the got to do like the Today Show or the Today Show, which was like that was the one that was really late at night because I think it was like the next morning in the US or whatever. I kind of forget how it went down exactly. I think that's what it was, yeah. But it was cool. It was fun to like, I don't know, feel like a star for a day or whatever. So
Yeah.
it was fun. Like definitely not my style, like being doing all the crazy media stuff. And like I was after one day, I was like, all right, that's good. Like got it done. It was fun while it lasted.
It would be funny if you guys were just asked general question and you branch off into core stuff. Like
Yeah,
are you proud? Are you proud of this? And you're like, yeah, I really wanted to respect what Corey Vanular did. And long story short, that was so sick. And the lady's like, what?
yeah. No, I that would be funny. I was trying to be. I knew I was like, I'm talking to people who know nothing about skiing, so I was doing like very basic answers. And Nick was a veteran. He'd done that. That was his third time, so he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
So I was kind of just like following his lead.
Well, super interesting. We just did a bunch about comps, but you, sir, are not just a comp skier.
I
S-
try my best to do other stuff too. Yeah.
So let's talk about the filming side because you've been also super busy.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely really busy.
Last time we did an episode, you teased me a bit with security notice about what was coming, and you were playing it cool. I got a little something going, and then you drop, dude. I don't know how many shots were in there, but that was an absolute beast of a segment mini movie. I don't know how we call it, but
Yeah,
so sick.
thank you.
Um, some insane shots in Roots, the movie from Faction. With the first time I think we saw your pullback. Is it possible?
Yeah, that was the first one I ever did actually. Yeah.
Yeah, super nice shots in the park shoot they had there. Um, then last year training montage
Yeah.
again, full street segment. I think I did a meme about that, just
Yeah.
being like, being like, people are busy, so they don't film, and then there's you coming in, screwing that narrative, being like, no, no, I did a full street segment, and I'm competing and winning the Olympics. So again,
Yeah.
big respect to you for doing that because that's setting one hell of a good example.
Yeah,
A bit
thank you.
like what Henrik did.
Exactly, yeah,
For the
take it
past years.
yeah, take it from those guys. I'm definitely not the first one to do Henrik's been doing it for a long time, but I
Yeah.
get inspiration from those guys to try and do both, and
And
it's
before Henrik, it was Wallish,
yeah, exactly. I mean,
who
a lot of
had,
people used to do it back in the
yeah,
day.
Wallish, who had like some years he had segments while competing. He had
Yeah,
segments with field and level one and 4x9.
mhm. Grinding. He was grinding, yep.
And then before that, I feel like the originator. Then you go back to the OGs like Tanner, who
Yeah,
was,
totally.
yeah.
I think it was definitely more common back then, and yeah, I get inspiration from those guys. Definitely not the first one to do it, but I try my best to do it as much as I can, just because it's I think what makes free skiing so special, just being able to do all these different kinds of free skiing. So that's kind of why I like to film as well.
Tell me about like what drives you to do that, because I'm guessing a bit of the answer. It's the passion. You're a free skier at heart, but like it's it's also going back to what we said about making bets. Will that trick pay off? Well, going and filming your street stuff, you might get injured and miss the Olympics. There's a lot of stuff that you have to be conscious about because you're a pro. That's what your
Yeah.
life is about.
Yeah, I don't know. There's actually a lot of reasons I do it. I think the main one is the main one for me is keeping skiing interesting for myself. So I'm the kind of person where if I all I did was compete, or I think all I did was film, I think I would kind of get bored of one or the other, and it would kind of feel stale. And I wouldn't feel like I'm not. I would still feel like I'm pushing myself, but I think it would just be for me a little more boring. So having or doing both things keeps skiing really interesting. So if I do a lot of competing at one point in the season and I kind of start feeling like I'm burning out on competing, then I can go compete. And then I do a lot of, or then if I'm competing a lot, then I can go film, and I film for like a couple weeks or whatever. And then at that point, like I go really hard when I film because I have a small window. So then at the end of that window, I'm like, all right, I'm over filming, but then I'm like stoked again to compete. So it's a really nice balance that I think helps me like stay stoked throughout the whole season. And then another huge reason for me is like I think there's a ton of things that you can take from filming and translate to your competitive skiing. So I think a lot of the reasons I've done well at comps or had creative tricks that have helped me do well at comps is because I do a lot of filming. And the only way you can really think of those tricks is if you're in an environment that isn't built for skiing. You have to adapt to the environment. So that makes you think of tricks in a different way or think of the feature in a different way. And then when you do that and you take it to a park setting, it seems easier. First of all, it seems easier and less scary, and then also it makes you look at a feature in a different way that a lot of the other guys might not be looking, because you've had to look at features that aren't built for skiing.
Hmm.
You're taking this whole different kind of aspect of skiing and trying to incorporate it in competition. So I think it's played a huge part in my success competitively is doing all the filming. And also a third reason is getting to spend my time with different people. So when I'm competing, I see all the same guys. I see my friends on the U.S. team who are my really good friends, and all the other teams. Like I love all those guys, and I get to travel with them all season. But then when I go film, I can hang out with my other friends. I can be with Owen or the other filmers. Like it's a whole different energy and different people. And I think keeping a balance between the two is kind of like what keeps me like mentally stable, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well said.
Yeah. So those are some of the reasons I would say. And it's a grind though. Like I also and finally I like really like the grind of it kind of like you feel like I like feeling productive. So like during the season, if I'm almost never just like home for a week or like 2 weeks just chilling or just skiing, or even like maybe what some other people do is like they're home, but they're like then they're training, they're going out, they're skiing park and they're training a lot like for competition. But if I'm home for a week or two and I feel like I'm not doing much, like if I'm not competing or filming, like I get so antsy and like I get almost like worried. So like I always feel like I need to be doing something. Like I'm really not impatient, but like I always feel like I gotta be on the move or on the grind, and that helps me stay busy is kind of filling those empty competitive spaces with like then film trips.
Got to keep the mind busy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if I chill too hard, I kind of it's good to chill sometimes, but during the winter I'm trying to like maximize my
Yeah.
days because you don't have as much
Hmm.
time.
And there's a lot of good points to what you said about street or any other filming, but let's say street in your case being useful for comps?
Mhm.
Because just let's say if you try a lot of challenge rails in the streets, well, then it goes back to what we were saying about sliding long rails in slope course. Well, if you tried that the week before, hundreds of try of a challenge rail, well, in a sense, you did practice your balance
Oh,
and
yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely helps you work on your balance, and yeah, I think a huge thing too is it just makes things less scary. Like this year especially, I had comps where I'd be scared of something on the rails maybe, and I'd be like, "Dude, you did something that was, like, so much scarier 2 weeks ago, like, this shouldn't be that bad," and then you can, like, convince yourself to try it, which is really nice.
Something that I think is really cool about what you do is the mix between there's a mix of what you film, which is street and also kind of backcountry booters,
Yeah,
side country, which it's not you're not going in BC filming Pow Sammy Carlson style, but like there's a backcountry element to it. With what you did with Magma, with the videos that come out with Faction,
yeah,
you know, you had some shots in Roots again that was in Europe somewhere. I don't remember where, but a lot of side country Candide style
yeah,
hits. Then videos at Hood, videos at Alta.
yeah,
Um, it's sick that you managed to incorporate both kind of in what you do.
yeah, I mean, I definitely, like, the last couple of years, I feel like I've done more street skiing, but yeah, I love, like this year, actually, I got to ski a ton of POW, a little more just, like, for myself. I was just skiing, like, POW, like, close to my house, which was really fun when I was home because it was just snowing so much in Utah, but I love POW, like, probably more than street skiing, but, I feel like it's a little harder to, like, figure out in terms of, like, your filmer and your crew, at least for where I am and, like, my friend group. So I do a little bit less of it, but definitely something I'm trying to get into more, and I feel like I'm actually pretty good at skiing POW. I just, like, don't get to do it all the time, but, like, I grew up my resort that I skied at mainly at home didn't have a park really. So I grew up like building jumps with my friends in the backcountry. Like that was a huge way I learned like a lot of tricks was in the POW and stuff. So I feel like I've always skied a lot of POW my whole life. It's just like I haven't filmed a ton of it. But yeah, that's a goal for the next couple of years is to film more POW as well as street and just kind of be the best all around skier I can be.
You definitely had some sick shots of Pow with the little you did with like I'm thinking of your real ski where you had your switch dub bounce and your switch dub
Yeah.
14. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was definitely stoked on like the real ski stuff, and I did a trip with Faction a couple years ago that was really fun in British Columbia. But yeah, just trying to be as well rounded as I can because I think that's what I respect. Like when I see a skier who's really well rounded, like that's what I respect the most. I think like
Hmm.
obviously I respect a really good competitor, and I respect someone who's really good at filming a ton, and some of the really good filmers are like my favorite skiers. But when someone like Henrik or Wallish or like someone who really does like everything, and I think Henrik is like probably the best example of that. Like he's had some of the craziest power shots, some of the craziest street shots, and he's won like everything you can win in skiing. Like I respect that the most out of anybody because I know how hard it is to be that good in everything. And you also have to step outside of your comfort zone. Like a lot of times, especially nowadays with all these national teams, like when you go to these comps, everything's organized. Your hotel's organized, your travel, your fees are paid, you got coaches. Like it's a safe environment in a lot of ways. When you're filming, like I mean, yeah, like when I go on a faction trip, a lot of it's organized, like the filmer's there. But like when I'm filming on my own, like for a Magma video or with my friends, like it's all up to you. Like you got to figure out the filmer. You need to bring the equipment. You got to know where to go. You got to know where, like when to go. Like all these things that if you mess, like if it doesn't go well, you can't blame anyone but yourself.
Hmm. It's all
Where
on you to make it happen.
all on you. So it's a lot scarier, I think, in a lot of ways to like there's a lot of thought of like, well, if we like don't kill this trip, like we're not gonna have a lot of clips or like something might not go right. But like when you go on a team trip, it's gonna be fine. You're gonna get to the comp, you're gonna be able to like it's all organized. So I respect that part a lot too, like the self-organization and the push, the individual push to really strive for something that's tough without like having all these other people like telling you what to do or like helping you do it. like it's a lot more on you. So I think that's really cool about filming as well. And I just want to give a shout out to Hunter. I know he's like one of my best friends, but I think he right now is maybe the best rounded skier overall, or one of the best overall rounded skiers in the game. More so than I am because I don't know how to ski half pipe really. And he knows how to ski half pipe. He's the only half pipe skier who can ski any street like easily. Like no one, if there was like a game of slush street between half pipe skiers, he would win so easy. It's like not even funny. Um, so he's a pipe skier, skis street. He knows how to ski power really well. We build slush jumps. He's really good at like slope jumps, park rails. So shout out to him for pushing all aspects because I know it'd be a lot easier for him to just go train in a half pipe all year and try and win half pipe comps than like I don't know like he's a pipe skier. He probably shouldn't be hitting rails with me in the streets, but like he does. So it's pretty sick
Yeah, shout out to him.
for
Again, just like you, big respect to him for you know being a free skier.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. He's just a free skier.
yeah,
He just likes to do it all kind of. So
yeah. And I think it was
we're cool.
there's always you know a question of how much recognition everyone is getting. Do they get what they deserve? And I was stoked for him to get the best short movie at the NS Awards,
Yeah.
and really recognizing how much not to go back to judging criteria, but variety there was.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
was everything in his
Oh,
video.
totally. I mean, I think it was such a good video, and Owen did such a good job with it, editing the whole thing. And yeah, it was a special project. I do still feel like I wish um, I still feel like Hunter's underrated, honestly. I think for how hard he goes and like all how good he is at skiing and how I think a lot of people don't realize how many good video parts he's put out while still being a half pipe skier. And I definitely wish sometimes he would get a little more love, like from sponsors or more sponsors for that. But hopefully, it's coming in the future, just if he keeps grinding. But yeah, it's pretty impressive to watch him operate and be a part of it. And like we push each other a lot too. So I think it's really nice, like having that friend that can push your skiing and help yourself progress.
Talking about you and Hunter, you guys have become YouTubers this winter,
Yeah, kinda.
teasing us with the good stuff. I love the trio you guys have going on. You, Hunter, and Owen. What's been cooking? Tell me about it.
Yeah, we took some couple years off, but we got the third installment coming, which I'm super hyped on. Magma 3 this fall at a screen near you.
IMAX
Um,
only.
yeah, I've watched it on the biggest screen as you can. But yeah, it's gonna be. I'm excited. We worked really hard on it. That was like our thought with the weekly videos is like if we're gonna be doing all this traveling with Owen and film all this filming, like there's gonna be so much behind the scenes. So we might as well put it out to the internet and like kind of I guess it's kind of like a long teaser like throughout the season, but also like I think people love footage of just behind the scenes, like us fucking around. Like
Hmm.
we do a lot of stuff for fun. We mess around a lot. So it was fun just like making those videos, trying to have like some more character stuff in it, like thinking of funny skits, but then also like we tried our best to have like some good skiing in them as well, like a nice balance of everything. And Owen did a great job at making those videos. But it was fun making those videos. It was definitely stressful. I know it was stressful for Owen, like trying to make a video every other week and stuff. Like it was a lot of work, but it was cool. And yeah, we grinded this year, man. We went hard for the movie. So we still competed a lot, but when we both had time off, we tried our best to get on the grind and film as much as we could. So it was pretty epic. It was exhausting, but it was I think I skied and worked this season. I felt like I skied more and it was more hectic than like the crazy Olympic year where I did all the comps and even filmed. Like this year felt even crazier with all the filming. So yeah, we went pretty hard.
So it's a one season project.
Yeah, just this year. So we started filming. I think Owen and we got my first street clip like at the end of October up in the mountains. We
Dude,
found a spot.
you guys are so lucky.
Yeah, we had a sick season this year. There's a lot of snow, but yeah, we found a spot in the mountains and we hit that in like October or at the end of October. So that was the first spot, and then the last spot of the year. was middle of June, like June 15th or something. So pretty big window, but on and off, a lot of comps sprinkled in there. So we weren't filming that whole time. We'd film for like 2 weeks, then we'd have like 3 weeks where we had to compete or do stuff, and then we'd film for like another week or two. So a lot of trips, a lot of good memories with the boys, and our slogan this year was "Run it into the ground." So like whenever we were tired or like over it, or like if Hunter wasn't feeling, I'd be like, "Dude, fuck it, man. We're just gonna run it into the ground, man. We'll figure it out later. Just like give it everything you got." So that was kind of our theme this year, and I think it helped us get through.
I love it. Yeah,
Yeah,
and as you said, you both had your competition schedule,
yeah,
so you're both busy, and also they might not align. So one might be free and the other might be competing.
exactly.
And also, you were filming for the new Faction movie. So I saw that you went to Japan. You had some, so a
Yeah,
lot of, and on top of that, I heard a rumor that you had a gazillion shots.
yeah.
For
Hopefully,
how do you make that happen?
um, we grind, man. But no, we got really lucky. So we told ourselves that we saw this window in kind of at the end of December and the beginning of January, that all three of us were free. We didn't have any comps, and we are like, okay, that 3 week window, like we got to grind that window. Like we got to get a lot of clips. So that's kind of where it started. Like I'd gotten a couple shots in Salt Lake here and there, like in November and December. There was a little bit of snow, which was really nice in the city. And then we both had an event in Copper. So I did a big air event and Hunter did a half pipe event. And then that was done about December 10th, or maybe or before that, like December 8th. And then we had this nice window from about December 10th to January like 5th or something, like about a 3 week window. And we did a big old road trip. We started in Colorado. So we went right from Copper and we went all along the Midwest. We went to South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin. We did like a big road trip. The three of us, and then our friend Reese Rule was on the trip. He ended up getting hurt about halfway through, which was unfortunate. So it was just three main crew for the second half of it. But yeah, we grinded it out. It was over Christmas and New Year's, so we weren't with our families. We were just staying in hotels and or motels over Christmas and New Year's, which was pretty funny. Um, but we got lucky. There was a lot of snow and we got a lot of clips. Yeah, I think we were getting like I like had a slow start to the trip, but then we really got in the groove and started figuring it out and found good spots. And I was getting like a clip a day pretty much. So we went like, yeah, I mean, we had a long trip. So I walked away with like 15, 20 clips from that trip. And Hunt got a ton as well. So we were getting like one or two clips a day every day, and it was hectic. We were like so tired by the end of it. Like we were so over it, but we just we just had to keep going. Owen calls me an addict. He says I'm addicted. So even if I'm like completely destroyed and dead, and there's this spot that is like pretty good, I'll just be like, oh, I guess I'll hit it. Like fuck, I
Dude,
what's one more?
you can't say no to another shot.
Exactly. So the boys were calling me kind of a clip addict, but we got a lot of shots. So that's kind of what started it off. And then from there, we actually didn't film for like a whole month because we had a lot of comps and stuff. But then we filmed some more street, like sprinkled throughout the year. And then by the time spring rolled around, we filmed a ton of slush stuff. And we were still pretty busy, but we found some windows in April to film, some windows in May to film. And then we ended off in June in California and Oregon finishing the movie. So yeah, we got a lot done. Definitely hectic. And yeah, those clips for Magma 3 combined with the faction clips was a lot of clips. So hopefully it'll be some good products to something to show for in the fall, hopefully. So
Dude, I'm hyped. Is
yeah,
it
I
gonna
don't
be
want to oversell it, but I'm stoked too.
yeah. Um so I'm guessing from what you're telling me, it's gonna be like half and half street and classic magma
Yeah.
builds.
Yeah, pretty much. It should be about half and half. I think I actually got more street clips this year. Just because we were kind of busy in the spring, and then actually we ended up going to California and Hood, and especially Hood had less snow than we thought there would be. So our trip got cut a little short. Like we didn't quite get as much done as we wanted to, but I'd say it's going to be about half and half. So I think that'll be kind of new and exciting because we've been doing the slush stuff. So having both in a Magma video will be pretty cool, I think. And yeah, I'm really proud of what we got. I think maybe even more proud of the for me personally the street stuff. Like I feel like it's probably the best stuff I've gotten.
In what
So
sense?
uh,
Going Cam Riley style, like jumping off a building, or
well,
being creative, being tech?
I'm not a big building jumper. I'm not like a huge spot guy, but just we found some really good spots, like some spots that we knew we wanted to hit for like a couple of years, like stuff like that that I've been looking at in Salt Lake. So yeah, a lot of just great like spots I was stoked to hit, and I think good trick selection. Like I did a lot of tricks I was really proud of.
Mhm. I'm always stoked on your creative approach.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, creativity, some really tech stuff, some big long stuff. I think we got good variety in the streets, and then in terms of the jumps we built, like the slush jumps. Yeah, a lot of different spots, some creative stuff, some really just nice jumps. Should be good. I think it's nice. I just got a little sneak peek from Owen last night because we're both in Salt Lake right now, so I went over there and saw what he's been cooking up, and it's starting to shape up pretty nice. So I'm stoked.
That's something that I really appreciated from the past two Magmas, was how creative you got with the builds. Like,
Yeah,
a bit like with the traveling circus guys, they always come up with new ways of handling PVCs, you know? And you're
yeah,
like, how do you keep thinking of new ways? And you guys were good. Like, um, did you still manage to one it up? And if so, how do you come up with the ideas? Do you just go to spots and see what nature offers, or do you have like pre ideas before going in, you know?
yeah. A bit of both. Like definitely, sometimes it's like you want a certain type of feature that you're really stoked on, so you want to build that, and then other times it's kind of like, oh, this I guess this feature looks really cool, so like let's try and ski it this way. So it's a bit of both. Like sometimes you're looking for that specific spot for that feature that you've been thinking about for a long time, and other times you just like randomly run into this feature that looks really cool, and like that's what you want to ski. Um, so yeah, like I usually try not to think about it too much because then it kind of like the creativity helps. Like you kind of ski what's handed to you, if that makes sense, instead of like trying to overbuild it or like do something like that. So I think we did a good job at that this year. And like I definitely had a couple days where like Owen and Hunter were still out of town and they were gonna come in a couple days. So I like there was a couple days in Utah where I just went ski touring like all day alone, looking at spots, like visualizing how we could build them and then taking photos of them. Then I came back and talked to Owen and Hunter, showed them all the photos, like said what I thought we could build on these specific spots, and then they kind of were like, "Well, we really like these couple ideas, so let's try and do those, and then maybe we'll think about the others." So that's kind of like how that worked out, which is pretty sweet. Yeah, so that helped like with the street stuff, like or the slush stuff, going up and looking at it, and then for the street stuff, it was pretty funny. We were actually giving Hunter a bunch of shit, but like the street stuff, I hate to be honest, but it was all on Owen and I. Like Hunter would just go where we tell him to go, like, or we'd be like, okay, you're skiing this spot, like do a trick. And Owen and I were like the big spot finders. So every night, literally like religion, every night when we'd check into like our motel or whatever, Owen and I would sit on our computer and look at Google Earth for like anywhere from like 2 to 5 hours in like whatever city we were in and just go crazy on Google Earth. Cause
You're more Google Earth than driving around?
well, I like to drive around, but like when you show up to a new city, it's hard to orient yourself. Like when I know nothing about the city, like we went to a lot of cities I'd never been to. So like we have a lot of funny strategies, but we approach it different ways, which is really nice. So Owen does it more on his phone, and he looks for kind of he has a certain eye for certain features, and then I do it on my computer, and so I see things a little differently. And we both pride ourselves in our Google Earth skills, so we're really like dialed on knowing what could be a spot and what couldn't. And Owen, like, props to him. He's like found some really sick spots that I didn't find or that I didn't notice, like that sort of stuff. But then also sometimes we will be driving around and we'll like see something randomly that's really sick. So probably not a majority of them, but there's a couple few like rare ones in there where we just drive by it. It looks really dope and we hit it. But and then I take it even a step further. I'm kind of like a nerd with it. But like whenever we show up to a new city, I pull up like there's like a topo map that shows like the elevation and stuff. Because pretty much like if it's dead flat, there's not going to be that many spots. Like that's how I think of it. But if there's hills, like there's going to be stair sets, or there's going to be landings or takeoffs or
Hmm.
natural speed. So pretty much the first thing I would do when we show up to a new city is I'd pull up like a topo map, look at where the hills were in the city, like on a map. Then I'd go on Google Earth, go into those areas, look at the hills, and kind of like go. Sometimes, like even if I don't see a spot, I'll go on Street View just to like get a perspective of where the hill is and what it all looks like. Um, but yeah, we were going crazy. I feel like every city we went to, I know like every part of the city just from Google Earth, like scouring like crazy. So we got to find some new cities to go to in the future because I mean, we definitely didn't hit everything. We're kind of picking and choosing our favorite spots, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I could look at those cities on Google Earth again. Like it would give you an aneurysm or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. That's a big thing when people trying to find spots. That's the first thing I go to is find a terrain that's not flat.
Yeah.
Because yeah, you want a city, you don't want to be in the middle of the woods, or there's stuff you want. Sometimes schools are good, but first thing is, are there hills? There's
Yeah.
a big city. There's Montreal that has a lot of spots.
Yeah.
The neighbor city is Laval, which is it's a city. It's a big size. There's nothing there.
Because it's too flat.
It's flat.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
flat. And then there was that with the project we released last season, MTL.
Hmm.
There were many spots that were on a certain neighborhood that I never went for spots because I didn't think there would be. But then I realized, there was a hill that was going for a long way,
Yeah.
going down a certain way. And then many spots I found were there. Like, I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
why didn't I think of it before? There's a hill there going
Yeah.
for a while. So, like, there's a lot of occasions to have some spots.
Yeah.
And,
And
anyways,
yeah, we were like definitely also we were trying to avoid cities that looked really flat, like on maps. Like if a city looked really flat, we'd be like, ah, like we probably won't try and go there. And also, we tried hard to not tried hard, like, but we didn't actually use a winch that much. I'd say we were mainly doing natty speed and like drop in ramps for a lot of spots. But obviously, if a spot was really good and it needed a winch, we would use the winch. We didn't end up using the winch that much, which was really nice because I just hate using like all the like I have a big old like gas one, so like it breaks and like all that's annoying stuff. So usually if we could, we'd like do a car tow in on the spot instead of using a winch. Like winch was like our last resort. That was like my rule. I was like, we're gonna try everything we can do to not use a winch, and then if we have to use one, we'll use it. But that's just like I was being kind of annoyed. They were like the other boys were kind of giving me shit. They were like, "Why do you hate the winch so much? Like it's an easy tool." And I was like, so I was being a little like over the top with it, but we definitely used the winch a little bit. And
you got to get on the electric winch tip.
I know. I tried to hit them like I didn't think of it until late in the fall last year, so I tried to just like DM them quick, and like they never responded. But yeah, because I heard they're pretty back ordered, so you got to order one like in the summer.
Okay.
But my old gas winch is pretty trusty. Like it works still a lot. But I was thinking about an e winch.
I have an old gas winch, and the other season Matt bought the electric winch, and we've been
Yeah,
using that. Man,
a huge difference, huh?
man, we can do solo. There's been a lot of solo missions where
Mm.
basically for the speed you don't have to be next to the winch. You have your little Wiimote, like a
Yeah,
video game controller. So I'm doing a follow cam. I have my skis on, and I just have the Wiimote in my hand. So I'm winching in when he's letting go. I can film. So for the solo missions, it's insane.
yeah,
I can
totally.
I can winch and film and do a follow at the same time.
Yeah, it's really nice, and I love how quiet it is too. All my friends have them. I'm like the only one who still has like an old gas winch, but
Old school.
I'm old school, and my gas winch is so fucking heavy. It's such a like it's so annoying. And
Dude, when you dragged it in Colorado for your Switch 6 on,
oh my god, an e winch would have been so
could
easy.
could have been in your backpack.
I know. Oh, I know. Um, but yeah, and like the wheels, like I have like plastic wheels on them, but they're like fully deflated and broken. Like they don't work. You just have to lift it. It's like so heavy. Um, but I also the one thing I was saying is like I kind of liked it because then I hate using it, so I try my best to like find natty speed spots, which I just like natty speed not because like it's cool, like I'm trying to be cool or whatever, but just because like I have a lot more fun skiing them. So when I ski a winch spot, I usually have less fun because it feels more stressful. Like the winch break, it's loud, someone's got to operate it, like all these things. But when it's natty speed, like your speed is consistent, it's quiet, you're not stressed out. You can do a better trick usually.
Well,
Uh,
usually if it's a spot that requires a winch, like that there's no option other than a winch, usually it's because it's gnarly.
Yeah, exactly. Or like you need a lot of like you got to go big. And the nice thing is with like some a lot of times, at least for me, like a winch spot, if I'm going fast or like those tricks take less time. I feel like sometimes like less tries.
Hmm.
So that because it's more of like a jump or like a wall ride or something. So that's the nice part is usually you don't have to use the winch too many times. But I did have one spot this year that had like a short in run, but I had to gap and I was winching, but I had to like winch in and then do a revert right before the jump because I wanted to go switch and then I hit it switch. And it was the closest I got to like having a full meltdown where I would just like quit. Like I try and never quit on a trick. Like I always try and get the trick, but I
Yeah.
was like very close to giving up on it because I was so over it. And it was like one of the last days of the street trip. And I was like, I never want to hit street again. Like, shoot me now. And then like luckily I got it like not too long after, like freaking out. But I think it was in part because I was using a winch that I was like so mad at myself, kind of.
Because it complicates things when,
Exactly. Yeah.
but again, you made it hard on yourself. Reverting in a
I
short
know. I
in
know.
run, it's
Why
like
I chose that trick, but I'm stoked. We got it. It was a good one. So I'm
it
hyped.
was worth it.
It was definitely worth it. I'm really hyped on the clip. So, and
Nice.
big props to the boys for pushing me to do it. Like, I was gonna stop, and then Owen was like, "Nah, you got it. Like, you got to keep." The boys are good at pushing me, so that's a good team to have at your back.
Please, Mr. Hall, give us the infos about Magma 3. So it's going to come out this fall.
Yeah, it's coming out in the fall. I think we'll aim for November sometime. We're gonna do a couple premieres, hopefully in October around the U.S. for it. Um, just gonna be on our YouTube, so look for it to be free for everyone to watch, and yeah, it's going to be a good one. I think I don't want to hype it up too much, but I think Owen and I were talking about last night, and I think it's personally, I think definitely the best shots I've had. So I'm really hyped to just showcase that, and yeah, hopefully people are going to like it.
Hyped to see it. And maybe another thing regarding your season. Um, Faction dropped a teaser for their new movie Abstract.
Yep.
It's looking sick.
Yeah, I'm hyped. Did a trip to Japan, which was like I think probably my favorite trip of the year last year. I went with there with Mac, Auntie, and this kid Koga, who's a local Japanese kid who's on Faction, and he showed us kind of around and showed us the spots. But yeah, that was like my big bucket list trip for like a couple years now. I've been wanting to go to Japan, and finally ended up going, and it was so fun. We were kind of on like we were grinding, but like I was in like vacation mode a little just because like I'd already grinded a lot of street before that, so I was really just trying to take it all in. Like the culture is so incredible over there. The food is so good. And yeah, so we hit some street there. Also got to ski some POW, which was dope. We got like 2 or 3 days that were like stupid deep, like crazy deep POW. Just kind of resort skiing, but it was so fun. Got to ski like some classic pillows and stuff. And so yeah, that was a big bucket list trip. Really hyped I did that one. That was like 2.5 weeks, and it was an epic time. Really memorable trip. And then I ended up going to Italy and doing a park shoot with Faction as well. So I got to do 2 trips with them, which was sick. Hyped to be a part of that movie, and I'm stoked to see how it turns out. I know the POW boys killed it. Like Mac did a bunch of POW filming with a lot of the guys, and they got some really sick shots. So I think it's going to be a dope one.
Yeah. Big shout out to Faction for real for putting those on. Because
Yeah, definitely.
they've been killing it at Faction since they started their web series. What was it called? We Are Faction or We Are the Collective?
Red Collective, yeah.
Dude, they've been killing it.
Yeah, totally. They've been they've been on, and I love Faction for that. Just like that they really care about the filming, and then I get to do these trips throughout the year with them. Like I mean I've done a film trip every year with them, pretty much for the last I don't know how long. So it's been really fun. I always have a great time on the trips, like hanging out with the Faction team, and I really appreciate that they do it because I think it's even though they try and make their videos a little maybe more appealing to like a more general audience, I think it's still like really cool that they're doing that. And you really don't see a lot of companies putting that much. of their kind of money and time into a lot of the film aspect.
Yeah.
So I've appreciated that with them for a long time now.
Yeah. Because it seems that since the downfall, let's say, of ski movie production companies, that ski companies haven't taken the torch. They've kind of said, "Well, here's a budget, Alex, do
Yeah,
produce your own movie," kind of.
yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
they've said like, "Okay, well, we'll do it."
Yeah, and it's sick. I mean, it's they take good care of us. Like the filmers are there. They got photographers. We usually go to really cool places. So Japan was like when I heard we were going to Japan to hit street and ski some pow. Like I heard about it in the fall, and I was like, that is the one trip I like have to do this year. Like I'm not missing that trip for anything. So
Count me in.
yeah, it was so sick. I loved it. It was really fun.
Was it as good as they say in the movies?
It really was. Like, I mean, we went there a little bit late. Like, so the POW was like it'd be really good, and then it would kind of turn to hot POW, like if it got sunny.
Like
But
heavy
we were,
pow?
yeah, heavy POW, and we were actually on the main island, so we were closer to Tokyo.
Mm,
We weren't like a lot of the really famous POW skiing's on the North Island.
yeah,
So we were in like more of the Hakuba area where they have bigger mountains, but the snowpack is like or the snow consistency is a little more variable. Um, but like not even I mean the skiing was incredible. Like the POW skiing was amazing. The street skiing was like really fun. Like a lot different than it is in the US, like more abandoned spots and different rails and that sort of stuff. But just like the culture, man, just going there and like experiencing like always having pictured what it would be like and then it kind of actually was like that. Like the people are so friendly, the food is incredible, you can absolutely understand nothing that anyone is saying or read anything. Like you're just there and you just have no clue what's going on, like because you can't read anything, and honestly no one really speaks English.
hmm
You're just like trying your best to get around, and like I love that because that's pretty rare nowadays. Usually you can speak English with people or figure it out, but like to be somewhere where you have like no clue how to communicate with someone is really fun.
especially for, again, speaking as a Quebecer. For you as Americans, everyone speaks English, so
Yeah,
you kind of
exactly.
never run into that.
Yeah, and you get used to it. And like the first week, we had a photographer who spoke English and Japanese, so that was really nice. Like he was helping translate stuff, but then the whole rest of the trip, it was just us and then Koga, who's a Japanese kid. He doesn't speak any English pretty much. So like trying to communicate with him, we try and use like Google Translate apps and stuff. And but like Japanese is such a different language than English that like pretty much everything gets mistranslated.
Right.
So there's so many times where we would try and explain something to him through texting and it would make no sense, or he would send something and translate it and it would literally make no sense.
Yeah.
So it was really fun, like trying to plan where to go, like what spot to hit, and communicating to each other because we had no clue how to talk to each other pretty much. And then Koga unfortunately got hurt, so then we were on our own for a while, and like we'd go to restaurants and like you don't even a lot of places like there's no pictures of the food, there's just the writing, so you literally like we would just be like we would translate our classic go to was like on our phone we would say um like feed us with whatever you like or whatever your favorite dish is or something like that, and we translate that to Japanese and they would just like bring us whatever, like we'd have no clue what was coming.
But that's sick.
It was so dope, and so that was really fun. And one really funny memory was actually we were driving to this street spot that was like a 2 or 3 hour drive away, and Koga has his own car. So I went in the car with Koga and he was driving, and my phone, like I don't have any service. Like I didn't have service in Japan or anything. So I couldn't use a translating app. And so I was in a car for like 2 or 3 hours with Koga and we were trying to talk to each other, but like he speaks almost no English and I obviously don't speak Japanese. So like we would try and say stuff to each other, and then sometimes we would just like run into a dead end where neither of us knew what the other person was saying. We would just be like, yeah, yeah, okay. Like so funny, like trying to talk to someone for an extended amount of time when there's such a language barrier. But yeah, super thankful that for that trip, and thankful Faction took me on that one. It was so sick.
Let's hop on the Patreon questions.
Yeah, for
Sounds
sure.
good. So I have a question from Will Cameron. Fuck, marry, kill, mute, mute, blunt, safety.
Fuck, Mary, kill. Um, kill safety, fuck mute, and Mary blunt for sure.
Yeah, I think, yeah, this is the way.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
Don't get me wrong, safety can still be sick, but mutant blunt are pretty nice.
Sam Chef asks, "What's it feel like to be one of the few riders that have a pro model ski? Do you think more companies should do this, kind of like skateboarding, or is it too cost ineffective?"
I'm stoked. First of all, yeah, I'm hyped that Faction's been on board with doing a ski, and we did the ski the one year, and then last year they wanted me to market this new ski they're coming out with, so I was on that graphic this year. But next year we got a pro model coming again, so I'm really stoked on what we've been working on, and shout out to them for being on board with that. And I think it'd be sick if more companies did. Shout out to Owen 3P does it. I know that they try and do some pro models with like Meeks, and I think Oscar's got one. Crypto maybe now just got one. Mango's got one. So they do that, and I think that's really cool. I think it's tough with skis because I think a lot like in the past the kind of the thought has been that when you make a pro model ski, you want like a whole new ski, if that makes sense. Like you want a new shape, a new like design, all this stuff. But I think a lot of us use like the same. A lot of people on the faction team will use like the same park ski or the same POW ski. So if you could do like instead of changing the whole ski, you just do like the pro top sheet.
Yeah,
I think that's really cool, and you don't have to make like a ton of them. Just like if you have kids that really look up to a certain skier, like they really want his skis, like they can still get like they don't have to pay like extra price for some crazy ski or anything. It's still the same ski. It's just a different top sheet, and I know that that's easier than designing a whole new ski.
yeah,
That being said, it's still like pretty tough. Even I know like with a top sheet, like that stuff takes time to design the top sheet, put in the works, like make sure it like prints right in the factory and all that stuff. So like with me for the pro model, it's coming out this fall, but I was working on the design last summer or last fall. So like you work on it at least a year out, if not more. And so we're doing one this fall, and then now we're talking about doing one the next fall as well. And those conversations are starting now. So over a year of planning kind of goes into that, just back and forth with graphic with design ideas in terms of just the top sheet, and then they usually like to make a couple samples. You look at them, you test them, make sure you like how they feel, but also like how they look back, and then maybe they change it slightly or they settle for that. So definitely time consuming, but I think it's really cool, and I think it's a great way for fans to be able to identify with their favorite skier, or their favorite pro athlete by being able to get that thing that they use. So for example, in soccer, it's like the soccer jersey, or like in pro sports basketball, you get your favorite player's jersey.
yeah,
Skateboarding, you get your favorite skater's deck. Whereas skiing, you could get their ski if you wanted to, even if it's not a crazy different ski design. Like the top sheet can still be like your favorite
yeah.
top sheet, which is
Just
really
a way of repping and also
exactly.
a way of supporting.
Yeah,
Because if you want to showcase to a sponsor you like a skier, I think there's not a better way than that.
exactly. Yeah. So it's super cool, and big shout out to Faction for being down to do that one and keep doing it.
Then great question from Ryan Bruninghouse. Favorite city slash country he's ever gone to for street?
For street, I mean, probably Japan, because it was like Japan was just like my favorite place ever. So it was like really fun. Like, but in terms of like wanting to be productive, get shots, not getting kicked out, I'd say for sure Finland. People are so friendly there. You almost never get kicked out. There's amazing spots everywhere, and it's cold, and there's usually snow everywhere. So you can't really beat Finland, I feel like.
Then Laurent Olivier Martin asks, why are you competing? Slash, what are you trying to achieve in your career, or what goals do you have?
Why am I competing?
Well,
Uh,
I think,
like after the
well,
Olympics or just in general?
maybe in general, like
Uh,
maybe in a sense of like, maybe I'm going to twist this question. Maybe that's not how he intended it, but like when he says, why are you competing? It's like, you're super good where you can be successful in anything. And maybe also like you've had a ton of success where if you wanted to stop, you could. Like,
yeah,
what keeps you coming to competitions, maybe?
I think there's a couple things that keep me coming. I mean, I think the main thing is like what I touched upon earlier is that balance of like filming and competing. At least right now, where I am mentally and in my career, like if I only filmed, I think I would feel like I think what would either happen is I would film too hard and pretty much like try and kill myself by getting too many shots and just like feel like I have to prove something if I'm just filming. Or I'd get bored of it because I feel like I'm not doing enough, where like I'm wasting time and I'm just like chilling filming or whatever. So having the balance of the filming and the competing helps me a ton right now. And just like, it just, I think it helps me like stay excited for skiing. That's a
Mhm.
huge part of it. Um, I think that's probably, like, the main reason, and maybe I'm, like, still trying to, like, prove something to myself, but I don't think so. I mean, I love competing too, like, it's not like I hate it, like, I think people get that vibe from skiing in general, but also maybe the vibe I put out is that, like, skiing, like or competing, like, isn't as fun or, like, it's stressful or, like, I only do it because you get paid for it, but, like, yes, like, some of that is true, like, you could make good money if you're doing well in comps or, like, your sponsors want you to compete, like, some of that is true, but I, like, genuinely enjoy, like, putting down a really good run is, like, one of my favorite feelings in skiing. It's, like, one of the hardest things to do, I think especially a slope run, like, you just have to be so dialed, everything has to go your way on that day, like, it's such an amazing feeling you get from landing a really good run. For me, even when I maybe don't do super well on a comp, like, if I do something I'm really proud of, like, I still feel amazing after doing it, so I think that feeling probably that kinda has me coming back, to some sense as well, but I don't know, and I love hanging like, I also really like traveling with the team and, like, hanging out with all those boys, like, they're my really good friends, like, I love going on trips with them to Europe and, like, doing some of the comps and, like, yeah, even if the weather's shitty or the course sucks or it's icy, like, I'm still gonna have a good time, even if it's maybe not the skiing part, like, just hanging out with them, like, afterwards, like, fucking around at the pool or, like, doing whatever, like, um, I don't know, the traveling aspect, like, it's exhausting, but it's really fun still, so hopefully it stays like that for a little. I mean, I always, like, tell myself, like, I'm taking 1 year at a time, so, like, if for some reason next year or the year after, like, the competing is just becoming overwhelming and I feel like focusing more on the filming, like, I'll listen to that feeling, and I'll try and execute on that. But right now, there hasn't really been I mean, this last year I filmed less because I really wanted to focus on filming Magna 3 and getting a lot of clips, but, like, there hasn't been this thing inside me that said, "Okay, you have to stop competing, like, you're over it." Um, like, as and when that feeling comes, which I'm sure it will one day, then I'll think about it and then I'll, reassess. But right now, I'm still really excited to do both, and hopefully, I can keep that energy going for a while longer.
Going back to the second part of his question, which was, what are you trying to achieve in your career and what goals do you have?
Yeah,
I think there's a good tangent to go with the examples. You know, we've said in the beginning that you've been inspired by the previous generations for filming and all that. Um, Again, going back to inspirations, we've seen Sammy, who was dominant and said, "I'm stopping comps. I'm going full backcountry mode." We've
yeah,
seen um, Andreas Hadveit, who was dominant and said, "Well, adios, I'm out." Like there's a lot of inspiration for you to draw from, like Phil Casabon, who just turned 34 and is still
really, I
as
didn't know that.
yeah,
Wow.
and is still as relevant as ever. There's
Yeah.
Wallish. Where do you see yourself in the future, or like maybe that's a bit like where would you like to be like going? Do you see yourself being a gapper doing like 3 consecutive Olympics?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think again, I mean, it's probably, like, the easy answer for me to give, but, like, I do think that I try really hard to take it one season at a time, so I try not to think about the long game too much. I mean, I definitely think about it, like, yeah, at some point, I'll probably wanna stop competing, I'll wanna film more POW, probably hopefully still film street, like, stuff like that, but in terms of, like, goals I have for competing, I mean, I think I actually get that question quite a bit, like, from my friends or, like, other people who just randomly I run into or that I meet, they're like, "So what's your goal?" Or like, "What's next after you win the Olympics and win X Games?"
Yeah. Or the
And I'll
question is, are there any goals?
are there any goals? And there are a lot of goals, and I think that's kind of the awesome part. I think what's helped me kind of my realization is like you instead of setting your goals as these achievements in terms of a medal or like winning an event, I try to set myself more for like personal goals. So for this last year, what really helped me be excited about competing was trying a really different and creative approach. And that was my goal. So my goal was to explore my skiing. And obviously, like, I'm always trying to do well at comps. Like, I'm not going to act like, oh, it's chill. Like, I'll just do whatever I want. I want to go out there. I want a podium. I want to try and win.
Hmm.
First and foremost, I want to do it for myself and set myself these goals. So even after you win the Olympics and maybe X Games, like, your goal can still be to try this new trick in this comp in this way, or try a different run in that way. And whether that's a gold medal or a fifth place or whatever, that's kind of like the bonus. But if you're trying to execute these new things and keep it fresh for yourself, like, that's my goal, is to keep the skiing exciting and keep it fresh for myself, and also to some extent for the audience, for whoever's watching, like, trying to explore the sport, trying to push the sport in a new direction. And I think like, the way I think, or what I've noticed this last year, is that kind of, like, me pushing in a certain direction has in some ways pushed the sport a little bit. I mean, I don't want to take complete credit, and I'm in no way the only one who's done it or is doing it, by no means. But I think, like, Vinny Gagne did the pretzel a long time ago, and he won an event, a big air event, and everyone freaked out, got mad, and then pretty much people were only doing bringbacks, like, for fun or like outside of comp. And then last year, I feel like I kind of brought them back in a sense, and I ended up winning the Olympics with, like, that was the staple trick, was the bringback. And maybe it's just me being more aware of that trick. But this year alone, the next year, from one year to the next, I mean, the amount of people doing bringbacks now, from what I've seen in competitions and even for fun, I think has increased by a huge amount. I mean, just from one year to the next, it seems like people are now realizing, oh, I don't have to spin this crazy amount. I could try a bring back with less spins. So pushing the sport in new directions, like, that's a goal of mine as well. And I think it's really rewarding too, when you see that you can have an impact on the sport in a new kind of creative way.
Yeah, and shout out to you for bringing it back, because you need Vinny, but you also need Alex to bring it back. Like,
Totally. And
both are.
And I think a lot of people think, like, oh, you're the first person to do it in comps, like you. And I'm not. Like, people have done it way before me. Vinny's, like, I'd say he's the originator. There's probably someone who's done it before him, but I think just, like, trying to popularize something like that is kind of what I tried to do. Like, I definitely wasn't the first, but I tried to kind of bring it to, like, the Olympic stage, or like a bigger stage. And I think it kind of, now we see a year later, I think it, in some ways, it trickled down, and
Mhm.
it opened maybe the eyes of fellow competitors, and also, like, the audiences and the judges. So that's been really cool, and kind of a goal of mine to push the sport in new directions.
And those kind of ways of bringing back stuff that you were inspired of, like, maybe you probably were inspired by Vinny, and then
Yeah,
you're like, oh,
totally.
how can I do it? And there was that with, let's say, Charles Gagne, Vince's older brother, who he invented the octograb.
Yep,
And I I might be wrong, but I don't think he necessarily had success in comps with that grab. But then 10 years later or so, Woodsy won it with a triple with an octo. And it's
exactly.
like kind of bringing it full circle and kind of paying homage.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what's so cool about, free skiing, is, like, you see things that maybe didn't work out a long time ago, then you bring them back with your own maybe little flavor on them, and then people, then maybe they stick, or, like, it's just cool. It kind of comes and goes in waves in some ways, which is
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
And another thing also that just brought me back is when I grew up, backslides or 1 foots weren't cool.
Yep, and now
And
I've heard
and
that.
w-
Now they're
w-
cool.
and one time, Phil released a B&E episode with Henrik and Mammoth where they were doing 1 foot, and then
Yep.
it became cool again. And
Yeah,
and since then,
exactly.
it hasn't gone back. It's still like a cool thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've actually heard that. I remember hearing that a couple years ago, that, like, backsides, like, people used to, like, not fuck with them, but now, yeah, now it feels like a lot of people are trying to do them or explore them, and they're really challenging. So that's pretty fun to, like, try something that's really hard.
Raf Diaz asks, "What was the best and or worst day of filming for Magma 3?"
I'm trying to think of worst day first. We had a lot of good days. Worst day, but, like, I don't know. When I think about the worst day, it's, like, not a bad memory. It's a good memory, because it just is, like, it's such a shit show or whatever. But one funny day we had this year was in the spring. It was, like, June, and we were in California, and we hiked all the way up to this jump spot. That was a pretty far hike. Like hiked all the way up here, just Owen, Hunter, and I, just the three of us. And the weather is like pretty stormy. Like we can tell like if there might be thunder or something coming at some point, but we're not really sure when. So we're like, ah, fuck it. Like we'll start building this jump. So we build this like pretty big jump. Like takes us a while to build it, and then like as soon as the jump is done and like we're ready to ski it, like this gnarly storm comes in, and we're like at the top of this mountain. We're way up, like above tree level. There's nowhere to really hide. So we like the storm comes in, it starts raining, and then it turns to hail. It's thundering everywhere, like lightning, like really close to us. So we like get under this little rock, and we just chilled. Like it wasn't even under it, like it was just kind of like a rock wall. So we were still getting wet. And we just chilled there for like 3 hours. And it was just like hailing on us. Like one time lightning struck like the mountain like right behind our heads. It was like crazy loud. Like I was honestly scared. And we just like stayed up there for so long, and we were like about to leave. We're like, dude, this is fucking. We were all getting cold too because we didn't. It was spring, so we didn't bring that many layers. Like I just had a rain jacket, and we were like, it was a pretty far hike out. You couldn't just ski down. We'd like hike back out, and we were like, damn, this is like kind of fucked up. It was like getting like it was like 5 or 6 at that point, like getting later, and we are like, should we leave? And then finally, like it chilled out a little. It didn't really get sunny, but it chilled out enough to where we were able to like hit the spot and get some clips. So like that was really sick, but like that was pretty gnarly day. And then my favorite memory is maybe also like kind of comes back to like not the like not worst memory, but like how gnarly of a day it was. But like on our final day filming, we we'd spent the 2 days before building this jump, or like a day and a half building this really big jump that just like was a really weird build and really tough to build. And we had to hike way up to it. So we hiked way up to it, built for 2 days. We were exhausted, and then the third day we got up there in the morning. We had to finish the jump, and we like brought up like a crazy amount of salt. So I hiked up with like a 40-pound bag of salt like in my backpack. So it was like really fucking heavy. And like we brought a lot of food and water for the whole day. We got up there like mid morning, built all day, like built for a couple hours. Like we had to finish the jump, so it took another 2 hours, and we skied it all day until like 9 or 10 p.m. or something. And then we ended up skiing down, and we didn't get back to the parking lot until I think it was like 10:30. It was like pretty much fully dark when we got back. So we were on the mountain for like 14 hours or something. And between building, hiking, like all this stuff, it was like the longest day of skiing I've ever had, like most exhausting day ever. Um, but it's probably like my favorite memory just because it was like the last spot. We wrapped up the movie. We got like some really sick tricks that we wanted, and we were just like so exhausted, but like so happy that it was like over. Like there was no stress anymore. Like we did everything at that point. We did everything we could to get as many clips as we could. So from then on, we could just like chill,
Mission accomplished.
mission accomplished type of vibe. And I remember Hunter looked at his phone, and we were just curious. So he looked at how many steps he had, and he had like over 30,000 steps. And
Shit.
and then we looked it up, and they looked at the miles, and we'd walked just like a couple miles short of a marathon throughout
Really?
the day. Yeah. So between hiking up there, and not to mention like all the building we had to do too. And then we hiked the jump all day, and then we hiked it into the sunset, and we just kept going. And then during the sunset, we were like running up the hill because we were trying to get as many hits as we could. And then the next day we were just like so tired. Like it was, we were bodied. Like I couldn't even like barely move the next day because we were so tired. But that was probably my favorite memory, but also like a worst memory because I was so tired. But that was a good day. Just like good, felt good to get her done and wrap it up.
Last question on my end, and from the guys on Patreon. We saw you kind of making a stand recently on social media, kind of talking about the fairness in pay
Mm-hmm.
in the FIS comps, because FIS is responsible for racing, for moguls, for ski jumping, for a bunch of
Aerial.
stuff, aerials. Um, what was that about? Tell me.
So it's kind of a long story, but it pretty much started by a lot of the homies like on the US team and I were like looking at, I forget why, we were just talking about like prize money and stuff. And Um, we got talking about like the prize money in free skiing, and then we were curious about the prize money compared to all these other events like racing and moguls and aerials and all this stuff. And we ended up going on the FIS website, just like looking at the different prize money, and we realized that free skiing, as well as snowboarding, moguls, and aerials, they're all under the freestyle umbrella. We get paid like by far the least amount of money out of any of the other events. And just to start off by saying this, like we didn't. What I was trying to do on social media was not complain about how little I get paid or it sucks that I get paid this little, because I obviously like I love skiing, and even if I got paid like very little to do it, I would still want to do it. But it's more the fact that we get paid disproportionately to how these other events or these other competitions get paid in terms of how many views we get and a lot of other factors. So I got to looking at all this stuff, and I started really realizing that wow, free skiing, we really get paid disproportionately compared to a lot of these other sports, just in terms of how much revenue we create and the views we get. And all of this stuff actually can be found on the FIS website. So you can find prize money, you can find statistics on views, all this stuff. There's a whole PDF you can download, like 40-page PDF, and read. So I read through a lot of these PDFs, and I just was kind of trying to gather an idea of, is it fair how much we get paid? Is it unfair? And what can we do to help it? Because obviously I'm in a position where I've been successful and I've made great money from skiing. I have great sponsors that support me. So, the FIS prize money doesn't really affect how much I'm going to make necessarily. Like that's a part of it, yes, but it's not going to make or break whether I can ski or not.
Hmm.
It got me thinking more for kids that are up and comers, younger, or trying to do it maybe without a national team, where if you're trying to make it in skiing without many sponsors or a national team, it's really tough because we ended up breaking it down. And unless
Well,
you're
it's
getting
it's pretty much impossible.
it's pretty much impossible. But for example, if you're on your own, no sponsors, no team, which is rare, but it does happen, and you have to travel internationally, let's say to Europe for a World Cup, by the time you pay for your flights, hotel expenses, fees for the event, you have to get minimum second place in the World Cup to break even. So if you get third, if you're alone and you travel and you get third place, you're going to be losing money in a World Cup. And that's also in part because you get taxed. So when you get prize money, you get taxed 18-20% right off the top. You never get your full prize money.
Hmm.
Um, so if you're getting third place at a World Cup right now and you're traveling on your own, you're losing money. So then we're thinking, okay, so how is this going to inspire? I mean, obviously kids do it because they love it, but you want to know that you can make a living of it. So how is this going to inspire kids to want to become freestyle skiers if they see that all at a minimum you have to get second place just to break even with the amount of money you spent to get there. So pretty much we started talking about this, and then the coaches at the team were like, okay, you should take it upon yourself to gather all the information and try and present it in a document. So in the last couple of weeks, I've been working on a presentation that we can then send to FIS and a lot of the other national teams to hopefully just showcase the discrepancies in pay.
Just to be clear, the discrepancy is that you notice is inside freestyle and not necessarily compared to racing. It's more inside of freestyle.
It's both actually. So it's
Okay.
in freestyle and it's also in race compared to racing. So just for some quick numbers off the top of my head that I remember. So free ski in the freestyle umbrella, we get paid the least amount. The total prize money for an event is I think they upped it now, but I believe it's $25,000 per gender. So for the guys, there's $25,000, and they split that between the top 10. So first place gets maybe 12,000, I think. Second place gets 6,000, but you then get taxed on that stuff. Third place gets like 3 or 2,000, and so on. It moves down to 10th place. So freestyle events have $25,000 for prize money per event per gender. Alpine per event per gender is a minimum of $144,000 in prize money. And yes, so this is where people come in. And when I post that on my story, they say, well, Alpine's getting way more views. They're creating way more revenue, which is completely true. They are creating way more views and way more revenue, but they're not creating that many more views and that much more revenue. So when you look at it, the total prize money on a season for freestyle for the free ski events is like, I forget what it is exactly. It's a couple $100,000. Whereas the total prize money for racing events is, I believe, 11 million. And obviously they have more events, so that helps. They have more events, that drives up their prize money, also drives up their revenue and their views. But when I looked at total views for the season in free ski and total views for the season on alpine compared to prize money, so total prize money they make about 20 times more, but total views they get still a lot more. They get maybe 17 times more because they have more events to showcase. But when you break down the numbers and you take 17 times more views compared to 20 times more views, that's the difference to pay us twice as much just there. If they did it in a proportionate way,
Hmm.
that's the difference to pay us twice as much in prize money. Not to mention, what I thought was really interesting was free skiing has exploded in the last couple of years. So mainly, I think because of Eileen and the Olympics. So it's gotten huge in China. So our views have gone up 500% in the last 2 years, which is massive. Like in the last 2 years, 500% more views, which is huge, and it's mainly coming from China. Where our prize money has pretty much stayed even though we're getting that many more views in revenue,
Yeah.
we're still getting paid the same amount. Alpine in the last 2 years, their views have declined 20%, but their pay has increased 20%. So they're actually getting less views in the last couple of years, and they're getting paid more every year, where we're getting 500% more views and getting paid the same amount.
Yeah. But
So that was, I was like, that's bullshit. That makes no sense. If they're getting actually less views now than they ever have, but they're getting paid more, and we're getting way more than we ever have, and we're getting paid the same, like how does that make any sense? So
mhm.
that's just exploring some of the factors. There's a lot more to it, but just like to briefly summarize it, that's what I've been working on in a PowerPoint, is getting through all those facts and the numbers, hopefully sending it to FIS. It probably won't do anything, but just to raise awareness of it,
Well,
to try.
you can never underestimate the impact that it will have. I'm sure it's worth
Yeah,
something.
and exactly, and also I think now I'm doing it as well because I'm in a position to do it. I think if I was maybe less successful, I'd look more like I'm complaining, like I should be getting paid more dues. But now that I've had the success and I have a voice to do it, I think it's my time to try and use my voice to create change and create an impact.
Yeah.
And I think when I posted on social media, a lot of people mistook it as me complaining that I don't get paid enough, where I make, I make good money. Like I'm fine with how much money I make. It's
Well,
more about how proportionately it is
yeah.
unfair.
Well, I got your point. I think many people got your point because you are doing good. You're in the top of the sport. That's not the point.
Yeah, exactly. And there was some people who like didn't get the point, but like a lot of those people didn't think about what the facts that I was showing them. And then it was actually really interesting. Like I got some DMs, I replied to some people just talking with them about it. And it was really interesting because they came at me really hot, like you're just complaining, like you're not grateful for being a pro skier. Like Alpine people get way more views, and then it went from that to me then explaining the facts and my reasons, and they actually would like calm down a lot and see my side of the story a lot, because I'm not being illogical. All I'm doing is showing facts. I'm not taking any personal opinion. So hopefully for this, I know for this next season, all the prize money's locked in, like nothing's changing, but this is more for the next, like in a year and a half, hopefully. So it's a long process, and just sending the information to FIS, and I'm gonna have hopefully send the information to FIS and a lot of the coaches, and at some point have a meeting, and talk about it with them. And even if the meeting just is for them to explain to me why we get paid less, that's fine. I just want to understand what the reason is,
Mhm.
because the numbers don't add up.
Mhm. But
So
again, great explanation. You sparked up a few question or just thoughts that come to my mind. Um, First off, is do they respect free skiing? Like sometimes we have that caricatural
yeah,
like view of they don't view free skiing as a legit sport. Maybe it's that, or
I
again,
think there's a little bit of that. Yeah,
probably not. Then does it come from the part that free skiing is a sport where people can make a living without FIS back in the days? Like you can make your living with faction and monster and
yeah.
spider. So
Mhm.
they consider that, oh, we can pay them less because anyways they're good with their sponsors.
Yeah.
Whereas aerials. People don't have,
Yeah,
people don't have that much sponsor money. Then my other thought was like, you were talking about views. Is it something that, um, yes, views equate to something, but at the end of the day, where does the money come from for FIS? Is it for sponsorship for the viewers? Like, where does it come from? And if it's
yeah,
that, maybe it's just that the people who sponsor are more old school in a way where they want to put their money towards racing and they're not, they have, a bit like old people who are not into rap, because they're
yeah,
still like stuck in their old ways. There's so many factors, and it's good that you're
totally.
pushing that because you're going to spark up a debate and just
Yeah.
assess those questions.
Exactly. And that's more like I'm also just trying to assess those questions, get answers from people. And I think one of the first people that understands it's not as simple as I just made it seem with those numbers. Like there's a lot more that goes into it, and sponsorships have a huge part to play in it. So for Alpine, they have a title sponsor. Audi is the title sponsor of the whole Alpine World Cup circuit.
Hmm.
Freeski doesn't have that. So that's a huge chunk of money right there that we don't have. But I think sparking the conversation and maybe that will help then, gear towards trying to find more sponsors or exploring a different way in which we can get more views through television, maybe get more television slots. Like just finding ways to hopefully like for one, hopefully get paid a fair amount. And who knows, maybe we are getting paid a fair amount because we don't have these sponsors, but these are questions I want answered.
Yeah.
And then for two, if we are getting paid a fair amount and it is so little, how can we change that? What can we
Yeah.
do? Is it get more sponsors for FIS? Is it try and get better TV slots? Is it selling the TV rights in different ways? Like what can we do to
Hmm.
hopefully increase prize money for I think what is at least what I've seen on data a growing sport. The
Yeah.
views are increasing every year.
Well,
So
my first reflex often is like they do a bad job at, again, what I just said is a bit harsh, but I don't feel like they showcase enough runs from the comps.
yeah,
So
no,
let's say they'll post on YouTube only the winning run, thinking that only the winning run is deserving of. Like I once had a worked for Do Tour back in the days, and I was kind of the free ski expert, like choosing if a run, which run should be highlighted on YouTube, which one should be posted. And
yeah,
I ended up posting a run from Vince Gagne, who didn't qualify for finals, and it was a super funky run,
yeah,
but it went viral because
yeah.
like he probably finished 32nd. I don't remember, but that run was super funky and it was sick. So all that to say that if they posted every run, just that could bring a lot of views and a lot of hype. And it's small things like that where I feel like they're dropping the ball and a lot of hype to
Mhm.
build.
Totally, and then the other thing is, like, our joke always, like, with the free ski guys is, like, if let's say we're somewhere and we're trying to watch a half pipe event that's somewhere else in the world, to find the live stream or the video, you literally feel like you have to be a hacker. You have to feel like a computer hacker to even find the right place to watch it. Like, it is
Dude,
almost impossible to watch it live. It's
it's a
crazy.
two-step process. New Schoolers Forum, where can I watch it? And like everyone's throwing ideas.
I know it's crazy. So like just making it easier to understand where to watch it, I think is one like the first huge step. And I know that's hard because they're trying to sell TV rights to people and that's why they don't want it online and like all these different things, but making it easier to watch, I think could create a huge change in just getting eyes on the sport.
Yeah, that's something that X Games had a hard time for a while, which was they were still going with the traditional media strategy, and it was the classic, as I said, New Schoolers Forum. Where can I watch it? And
Yeah.
they slowly transition, and finally now it's on YouTube. You can
Yeah.
watch it live, and it's kind of embracing that new way of doing things.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I think yes, like um Fist is kind of stuck in like the old ways in some senses, but I think there's potential and like I don't think like I think everyone thinks that Fist is like this evil organization and like fuck Fist and all this stuff, which like yes, sometimes I totally agree, like fuck Fist, like they do some dumb shit. But like they also like there's a lot of people that work for Fist that we get to talk to at events or different things like that really do have the sport in their best interest. Like they're trying their best to help the sport. They're trying the best to make the course as good as they can, to make the run the competition as well as they can. a lot of these people are really passionate about skiing or even free skiing, and they're trying their best to help it. It's just the way that the company is run is pretty old school, and I think that
Yeah.
bleeds over. And also like there's a lot they do a lot of shit that like I'm like, why did you do that? Or that's so stupid. Like now that Free Ride World Tour is a part of it or whatever, like I don't even know what that means. But I remember when I saw that, I was like, damn, like that kind of sucks for them. Just because I feel like free riding is such a it's so different. Like it's free. It's
Yeah. I see it more as kind of like Disney buying Marvel, which is like,
yeah. I mean, it
yeah,
is.
they're like, it's a business buying another business.
Yeah, it's that's exactly what it was. But there's annoying like one of the things that like for me like why I say fuck this like one thing that leaves a really bitter taste in my mouth, which is fine. Like I get that it's part of it, but like the whole as soon as you're part of FIS, like you there's crazy drug testing, um, like just rules and all this stuff and like I think drug testing like it's a good thing. Like you want to ensure the sport is fair, everyone's on the same level, but they they run things in such a weird way with drug testing, and it's so unfair to the athlete in terms of rules that will give you a strike or like how you have to because so it's a whole nother conversation, but that's one of the things that really has been I've been struggling with is like all the drug testing stuff. And for the record, I don't do any drugs, so I don't care about like they could test me whenever they want, but it's about like you have to update your location all the time and like all this stuff. They can drug test you whenever you want. If you miss 3 drug tests in a row, you get banned for 2 years, which is less than if you fail a drug test.
Kind of over, which is more or less?
So if you actually fail a drug test for taking drugs, you get
It's
banned
less.
less time than if you miss three. And it's if you're getting tested a lot. So this last couple of years, I get tested a lot. It's really easy to miss tests because like I can leave the house and they can show up at my house, and if I'm not there, then when they show up, I'm that's a missed test. Like
That's weird.
it's really weird, and so it's been really annoying to deal with. It's a whole nother conversation that I could get into, but there's those sort of things and rules that I understand that they have to do them, but they approach them in an old school way that isn't very, I guess, nice for the athlete to try and manage. If that makes sense.
I feel like that happens. Not to diminish it, but I feel like that
It's something
happens in all sports where you'll get a football player doing one hell of a run, like breaking tackles, and then random drug test the
yeah,
next
no,
morning.
and don't get me wrong, I think drug tests are fine. Like, and I understand you, especially with it being an Olympic sport, you have to ensure that no one's doing drugs to try and like enhance their performance. But there's a lot of small details, but there's just ways in which they do things that are it's really makes it really hard for the athlete not to miss tests.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's actually this other thing that I've been working on is I've been talking to a lot of the people at the drug testing organizations to try and figure out a better way to test athletes as well to help us out because I know a lot of like the guys on the U.S. team struggle with trying to not miss tests because it's really hard to update your location all the time, and the way they have it set up with the website's really tough.
Because
So
you guys are always on the move, also.
always on the move. They have like a really shitty old website where you have to go in and update your location that like glitches half the time. There's just like a lot of things that I think they could improve to
Because
help with that. So
especially with the difference, like racers, like maybe I'm wrong, but like they have races and they're training, so it's like whereas with skiers, Colby will be in Alaska, and then you'll be in Japan filming,
exactly.
unrelated to competitions. It's
Uh,
and then for a certain trip, you're waiting for a weather window, so
yeah.
you might go or you might not go. It's
Yeah, exactly. It's that's what makes it really tough. But you know, ultimately, I do understand that it's as a professional athlete, that's part of your job is to make sure you're giving your whereabouts and you're making sure you don't miss drug tests. So it's part of it, and I'm not like going to make a huge deal out of it. Like I live an amazing life, so the like updating my whereabouts sometimes is fine. But
no, but I think it's a great thing because, as you said, you're not the one that's let's say for prize money, you're not the one that's losing on it.
yeah,
You're probably among the most successful free skiers financially. So it's more for someone who ends up eighth, who
exactly.
who doesn't have a monster helmet,
Yeah.
who's losing money at the end of the day being on that.
No, exactly. It's for like a lot of the younger kids too, like the up and comers where they don't have those sponsors yet. Like they're hoping to get there one day, but right now, like they're barely scraping by, or like a lot of my friends, like they're working a job all summer, which there's nothing wrong with that, but you also want to be trying to ski and you want to be trying to train as much as you can as well.
Hmm.
So just elevating the pay to a place where hopefully it's in a fair spot compared to other sports that are under
Mm.
fists.
And then again, last point to what you said was uh, something that I thought about racing versus freestyle is maybe they just have someone representing them. Kind of you have an agent probably,
Mm,
and your agent goes, "Why does Alex have that contract with Faction?" Well, because your agent went in and said that's what we want, and he
yeah,
negotiated for it. Maybe it's just as simple as no, there's no one that ever spoke for free skiing in that sense.
yeah, and
Whereas maybe racing has that guy that represents them, kind of union guy saying like, "Hey, that's what we're worth." And
totally, totally, and it's because we're such a young sport and new sport is a part of that. So I definitely understand that, but there's always room for.
bring back AFP.
Dude, I know AFP was sick. But yeah, there's always room for improvement, I think. So that's the goal with that one.
Well, congrats on you for making that happen because it comes from a good place, and you know you have a lot of on your shoulder enough already with your career that it's not as if you're looking for things to do.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and yeah, trying my best to help everyone out as well as myself. But yeah, help the sport out. So
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Alex. Stoked we did a part 2 together.
yeah, it's been fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it wasn't too long. Hopefully, I wasn't rambling about the nitty gritty too much, but it was interesting. So
Dude,
thank
loved it. Congrats on the success.
appreciate
Big
it.
respect on your approach to things, and hyped to see Magma 3.
Yes,
And now
sir.
it's
Coming
time
out
for
of
a
screen
first
near
sponsor
you
break in every IMAX.
in every IMAX. You got to watch it on the big screen.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So this is it for episode 43 with Alex Hall. Big thanks to the sponsors once again, Axis Board Shop and Dick Ann's Restaurants. Also, big shout out to the patrons. If you want to join, check it out at patreon.com/the Mayrand Podcast. Peace.